So there was a UFO hearing today, and I got to tell you, it was one of the most boring things I ever had to listen to, and I had it playing in the background, and eventually I just turned it off. But there were some things that I found interesting. The first thing I'll say is, I don't believe any of it. I don't trust these individuals that are testifying. I think they're misleading people, and factual but not truthful in how they describe things. Let me just say, Hunter Biden was facing a plea agreement. It fell apart. The judge threw it out. There seems to be some very serious backroom dealing going on that they could not say on paper or in court. And the judge kind of figured it out and everything's falling apart. And then surprise, surprise, a UFO hearing happens where some guy says that non-human biologics have been recovered from off-Earth technology. I'm not going to bury the lead. A weather balloon with a cat in it is off-Earth technology piloted by a non-human entity. Okay, so unless they explicitly say it, but anyway, I digress. Based on the context of the conversation, when asked about non-human pilots, and he said, yes, yep, and then said off-Earth technology, there's no way he doesn't know he is confirming the existence of aliens. Okay, and he may be trying to manipulate the public, I don't know, but we will talk about it. I think it's silly, but trust us, the conversation will be dabbling in the political because we'll be talking about how they want to distract us from what's really going on. And that's the Hunter Biden story. We also have big news. Mitch McConnell appeared to have either a stroke or seizure on live television at a press conference. He froze and nobody could make heads or tails of it. I think it may have been what's called like an absent seizure. Some people say it may be a TIA. I forgot what it stands for. A mini stroke, they call it. But we'll talk about that one for sure. And there's a couple other stories. Kevin Spacey was found not guilty. Some people have said this proves it's Me Too garbage. Others say, nah, it's just he's getting away with it. But before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. Big announcement. Yo, we got new flavors. You can join the Cast Brew Coffee Club. You can get ground or whole bean. And you'll get 3 bags per month if you join the coffee club. Or take a look at this. We got Mr. Boca's Pumpkin Spice Experience, Appalachian Nights, the new blends, Sleepy Joe Decaf, now available. And we have Stand Your Grounds and Medium Roast, Unwoke Decaf. That's right. We're all very clever. Shout out to the Timcast members who are helping us come up with names for some of our blends. They're all available now. And if you want to support the show, you can buy coffee at castbrew.com because that's our company. We sponsor ourselves. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member. And you can actually call into the members only uncensored show Monday through Thursday around 10 p.m. We take callers around 10:30 p.m. We do 4 or 5 every night. If you've been a member for at least 6 months or you sign up at the $25 per month level, you can submit questions and potentially call into the show. That we will have one of those up tonight around 10 p.m. So it's a lot of fun. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this and more is Lila Rose.
Hi, Tim.
Who are you?
I am Lila Rose. I'm the founder of Live Action, and I don't know if aliens exist or not. That is an interesting topic, so I don't have a ton of opinions, except it would be fun to meet an alien.
Yeah, maybe. Unless they are trying to experiment on people or something, you know.
That would be a problem.
We're not particularly nice to non-human entities when in reference to cows and stuff like that.
We're not nice to human entities, and so Live Action's focus is protecting humans, and what never makes the headline is that 2,500 humans, children in the womb, are killed every single day legally in the United States.
Good point. Humans aren't good to other humans. What would aliens do? So, well, thanks for joining us. Should be fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got Phil Labonte.
Hello, everyone. I am Phil Labonte, lead singer of the band All That Remains, anti-communist, counter-revolutionary.
I think that aliens are going to mimic us. So if we get our stuff together, maybe we'll have a better chance. There's a theory that we're in a black hole, so everything that's going in is actually coming into our universe from without. I don't know if it's real or not, Phil. I'm Ian Crossland, and Tim, you mentioned earlier that what's his name may have suffered a TIA, transient ischemic attack, commonly known as a mini stroke. But anyway, we'll get into it on the show. Good to see you.
Serge is back.
Yes, I have survived my trip to Utah. Finally have a license. It's great. I'm Serge.com. Let's do it.
Here we go. We have this tweet from Drama Alert. Former U.S. intelligence agent David Grush confirms under oath that aliens exist. Okay. Technically, he did. In the context of the question asked and how he answered, he did. But I'm willing to bet that a game is being played to distract us from the Hunter Biden news about tax avoidance, tax evasion, and other illicit business deals, failure to register as a foreign agent, all of a sudden we get this story which seems to be nonsense. But in the rare, look, it's going to be really funny in 50 years when they're like, humans made contact with aliens, in the 30s or whatever, and it was revealed to the public in 2023, but no one cared. So, okay, we'll talk about this because it may be big news, but let me play this video for you. We have Rep. Nancy Mace talking, asking this question, and it is a good question. Where's our audio? Is our audio good? Let me get the audio up, and then here we go.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
If you believe...
Okay, I'll say it again. I said it in the intro to the show. Piloted, first of all, she said pilots, and it seems like he kind of weaseled past it. Yes, she says, did you find pilots? And he goes, we've recovered biologics. Yeah. Does that mean we recovered the pilots? Or does it mean like there was a leaf in the vessel? He did not say, look, I'm sorry, man. If you're trying to confirm the existence of aliens, you need to look Nancy Mace in the eyes and say, ma'am, the vehicles or craft, whatever they may be, appear to have originated not on this earth. Technology we don't understand, and whatever creature or entity was inside of it is unrecognizable to us. Then I'd be like, whoa! Then, I'd be like, what was it, burned? Okay, non-human entity? Someone posted a picture of an ant riding a leaf.
So remember Barack Obama when he said he didn't know when life began, that was above his pay grade? we don't even know when human beings are.
Yeah.
So what would be a non-human biologic? It beats us, right?
So you're saying they may have found a fetus in the spaceship, and they're like, wait, it's not a human.
That is a theory, Tim. That is a theory.
I'm so jaded on all of the recent alien stuff. I'm just not. It's not fun anymore. I don't think I don't buy anything the government says. Anyways, why am I going to believe this?
We've had intense advancements in microelectronics and in metamaterials that are lighter than, a lot of them are lighter than air. Some of them are. We also have talking plasma, like laser technology that can triangulate into points in the atmosphere and create a plasma ball that you can move around rapidly on a radar, make it look like it's some crazy craft. It's too much obvious advancements to start pretending now, 100 years later, that we're finally in touch with aliens. They tried to pull this over on people in the 1940s with Roswell. They said it was a hot air balloon. They said it was a balloon. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, it wasn't a balloon. I think it was an alien craft, everybody.
What was the dog's name? Laika? The Russian dog that went to space? Yeah. A non-human pilot of an off-Earth vehicle.
Pilot that's very generous.
Dog was a pilot. The dog hit buttons.
That's very
It could also
generous.
be, they store data in DNA. So it could have been like a computer, an onboard computer piloting it that had its data stored in DNA, which is a biologic. It's an organic, carbon-based.
Look, off-Earth technology could literally mean a balloon. It's off the Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something
it's manipulative language, and the dude didn't bring any real evidence, and he danced around the issues. But I will add, he not just him, but in the hearing, they did imply that people have been murdered to cover up UFO information in the government, and that he implied aliens are trying to harm human beings.
I don't buy it. if you can, so I'm not even sold on the possibility of an alien craft getting from another star system to our solar system. Like I'm not even sold on that. But
meaning you're saying they're real, they just can't travel this far.
Yeah, I'm not sold that you can travel those distances. But that being said, even if that's the case, right? Say we'll give that, like, if they have the technology to do that, to make that journey, there is no way human beings could do anything at all to stop them if they desired whatever they want to do. We could not do anything at all. They would be so advanced, so far beyond our ability.
No, it's not necessarily true. It's assumptive. There could be an alien species that focused all the technological development into Einstein-Rosen bridges, and their communications can be lacking. Their manufacturing could be more lacking, but it may be surprising to another species that we've so heavily developed communication technologies. The assumption that aliens will be like people, like bipeds with hands too.
The
is
second law of thermodynamics says that you can't that you have to nothing is created or destroyed. Like it's the law of entropy. I mean, you're not all of evidence is that things break down. You don't. The only thing that has been able to expand upon itself and replicate itself is here on Earth. We haven't seen that anywhere else.
Well, there's negative entropy in like matter comes together and fusion occurs in stars. But over time, it has to create more entropy than entropy.
The theory that's confusing is people say you can't get more energy out of a system than you put into it. But people are assuming that systems are closed. There are no closed systems in reality. Energy can always come into your area from further away.
But I'm just trying to.
So you can create systems like fusion where it pulls it in from outside.
I'm just trying not to deviate because that's way too far off where we were. What I'm saying is, in the event any kind of alien life came to Earth for some reason, it is an assumption that they would be more advanced than us beyond our recognition.
But they could have sent like drone craft with like a bioorganic machine as the pilot. Yeah, and it's not targeted, so as soon as it enters the solar system, it just crashes. Like they could have. It could be done. Look, I don't think it. I think they're just trying to fund Space Force.
Russia launched that dog into space. It never came back, did it?
No.
Poor dog.
And there's also a theory that Yuri Gagarin, is that his name? Was not the first guy in space. He's just the first guy to come back. And the first guy in space just, whoop, he's gone. Whoopsie. So, look, maybe a satellite crashed and they called it off-Earth technology with non-human entities. I Googled it, my friends. What is a non-human entity as defined by the Library of Congress? Fictitious characters, mythological figures, deities, legendary characters, and animals with proper names. Quite literally, there could have been like a Marvel comic book if he's trying to manipulate, to distract from the Hunter Biden stuff, because these guys are intel officers. Sorry, I'm more inclined to believe that if you came to me and says, what's more likely? They're trying to make sure nobody pays attention to Hunter Biden. They've been covering for the Biden family for decades. I'd be like, well, that's a fact. Or aliens exist. I'd be like, well, the first one's a fact no matter what. So if you come to me and tell me this guy's lying about aliens to distract us, that just plays into what we already know and is probably true.
Also, what about angels and demons? Where is that in that definition?
So it would be funny if the craft they discovered was like a flaming chariot with an angel on it or
something.
We
know. I think there's a lot of evidence. If you want to look at things that are just not out of the ordinary, look into exorcisms and the existence of demons and evil.
Yeah. What do you think an exorcism is anyway?
It is ultimately casting out a demon.
Like, is someone having a force of seizure?
In the name of Jesus Christ.
And they're letting go of an old behavior pattern and they're having like a seizure while it's happening or something?
There's a physiological reaction. Absolutely. That is, you can see happening.
Have you ever seen one happen?
I've never seen one happen, but I know people that have, and I've talked to priests that have done exorcisms, and I've talked to people who've been oppressed by demons. So you don't really see that talked about a lot at the U.S. Congress, but that's affecting a lot more people than aliens right now.
That
and abortion. So there's a lot more.
If you talk to these hippie leftists, they'll say interdimensional beings. You do DMT and then you see weird beings and entities that offer you things and stuff. And I'm like, it just sounds
crystals,
like demons. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're talking about what people have talked about for a long time, just in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, you can invent sort of a system of what these things are to you that fits your ideology or your worldview. But at the end of the day, I believe there's God. He created human beings. We have rights. There's also angels and demons. Demons are fallen angels. God's a person. Angels are persons, and humans are persons. And then there's animals.
So the non-human entities and aliens might be angels or demons?
Possibly. I have thought about that, especially those reports from the military seeing the UFO going really quickly, and it seemed faster than any space craft could go. I'm like, that could have been maybe an angel. You don't know.
Or do angels have vehicles?
They could if they wanted to.
That's our bodies.
Wasn't Seamus saying that angels are not?
We are our bodies.
Like physical entities.
They're not just our vehicles.
I don't know what Seamus was saying, but if I understand correctly, like angels are not this like human beings, and angels are very different things.
But angels are not physical beings. It would not be a biologic.
They're just spirit. They're only spirit.
Yeah, so they wouldn't recover
the
body.
But they can appear as biologics in order, to make an impact. That's what happened. Like
what
the
does that even mean?
The angel appeared, so it looked like a biologic.
But that's not a word we use. biologic.
I know.
We're using that because of the.
No, but
of the
I know.
Nancy
Like, so
Mace
why is he saying that? You know,
Why
it's
is he
like
saying that?
a car accident, and we discovered two
Oh, yeah,
biologics.
yeah.
Like, what does that mean? Are you telling me that there's two victims?
I feel like it's like they would normally use the term like remains, like that's like call it biologic. Like calling it biologic is weird, but like in other contexts, they would say the remains of what we assume would be a pilot.
Yeah,
and it's I don't understand. I mean, I not that I am trying to look into their brains, but like that's the standard way they describe stuff. So I don't know. I mean, biologic, is it like the alien just a paste?
That's what
is it like a goo,
a bacterial paste that they worked on a space station, and then they maybe
the alien is a space is
An
like
off Earth vehicle. It was a satellite that
blob.
crashed with mold. In
could have been
Yeah,
a snail
right?
named Joe. Like
It's the Russian dog. He's,
Right.
He's
Came
shown
back.
up.
We found it.
as long as there's so much crap going on with the White House, I'm not buying it.
Plus, they lie. Like Karine Jean-Pierre will lie straight away. So why do we think this guy won't? James Clapper lied under oath to Congress.
They
why would we
all
assume this guy
lie.
won't?
What?
All
Let
the
me ask you.
time.
What is the agenda of these intelligence agencies? Has it been to expose secret information to the public, or has it been to protect the Bidens and other corrupt politicians?
It's to protect the government.
My argument is there's a lot of incompetency in government. And so it can look like random stuff that doesn't make sense can look like some conspiracy that doesn't really make sense, but we think it's targeting someone. But a lot of the times it's incompetency. That would be my argument for a lot of government bureaucracy.
There's also the possibility that these guys, along with someone like Bob Lazar, I think his name was, right?
Yeah.
Government has a secret base. They're doing typical experiments, propulsion, normal stuff. I mean, new technologies. They want to scare our enemies, China, for instance. If China knows exactly what weapons we have, well, then they're going to plan for when, they go invade Taiwan and how they're going to fight us. If now they're asking themselves, did they actually recover alien technology? If we go to war, are we going to go up against something we don't understand? It could be that these guys are useful idiots who are brought into a room and shown, effectively magic tricks. And they say, this is top secret. You can't tell anybody, but look at this. And then they see a levitation. We have a UFO levitating table right now. And then he's like, I got to tell everybody. And then he goes and he says what he can say, but he's really just being duped as part of a psyop to make our enemies think that we've got a higher level of tech than they do.
But do you think there's a lot less psyops and there's just a lot more, again, incompetency, mistakes, human error, confusion, chaos?
How do you accidentally swear under oath that aliens exist?
Well, I don't think did he actually say that? He just kind of...
In the context of the conversation, you can make two conclusions. He's lying to us or he's saying aliens exist. The way he phrased it, I lean towards lying to us. But it's either that or he's literally... There's no honest way. He's claiming a dog was found in a satellite. Or mold was found in a module that was in space. He was asked about non-human pilots and says, yes, we've recovered them. How do you accidentally lie about that?
I don't know. No.
You either intentionally lie.
Oh yeah,
or
maybe he thought he was telling the truth. Like Bob Lazar, I think he really thought he was telling the truth because they brought him into a room with 9 drones and they put a puppet of a green alien in one of them in the seat, and he remembers seeing that. And then they probably had some wild metamaterial that was vibrating so fast you couldn't physically touch it because it was creating force. And he was like, oh, because he remembers that part of it. I believe that's something about it. And then he just
got his hand on a window.
Yeah, and then they get him to go tell everyone that it was, and then they tell him it was from Zeta Reticuli. They feed him some nonsense so that if he ever does go public, he'll feed the public some nonsense.
Yeah,
he'll look
that
like
too.
And so this guy could be similar, or he could have been just lying. He could just
Think
be
about how
lying.
they compartmentalized the Manhattan Project. Nobody knew what they were working on, right? So you bring these guys in, and you're building some kind of technology, and let's say it's not even anti-grav or force field or alien tech or whatever. Let's just say it's a metamaterial that's lightweight and very, very dense, very useful, heat resistant, can deflect bullets.
A Cermat or something. That's a type of metamaterial.
You don't want this guy whose job is to file paperwork to know how you make it in the event he leaks things. So what do you say? Aliens.
Here's a question. What would aliens think of us if they showed up on Earth?
I don't know. What do we think of cows, chickens?
Well, I don't know if that's even the question because bringing it back to
I like
children
chickens.
and how we treat children, there's estimates that we kill about 50 million preborn children globally. tens of millions of preborn children.
But you have to
so
understand
we kill
when
our
you-
young.
when you
and so
talk-
what would they think about that?
Yeah, but when
We're
you
a species that kill our young.
when you talk about that, you have to acknowledge that the people that are actually having abortions, they don't conceptualize it as killing. They just don't. Like I know that you do. A lot of people that are listening do. People that are pro-choice don't consider it killing. That's why they
different.
can do.
That's people who get abortions and people who are pro-choice are two different things.
Fair enough. Okay, people that are pro-choice do not consider it generally, and this is a generalization, but people that are pro-choice don't consider it killing at all. They consider it a medical procedure, and that's why they want to control the argument the way they do.
I think that's pro-abortion people. I think the traditional pro-choice,
Like I said, that
overwhelmingly does. Many of them do think it is killing.
fine. But the point that I'm making is the people that find pro-abortion, because most people aren't pro-abortion. Fine, fair enough. But
No. Most of the left is pro-abortion, but most people
aren't.
I think there's a variety. There's a lot of different reasons, and there's a lot of different beliefs around it about whether or not I'm actually killing someone. Is it a someone? Am I just going to put my head in the sand? But back to the aliens question, the fact is we are killing as a society globally.
I don't know how aliens
Tens of millions of people.
Look, we got too many chickens in Chicken City, so we got to stop having more of them. They sometimes make more of themselves. Mostly we incubate. So now we're probably going to give some away or something like that, or just move them to new locations. But we have too many. So
They'd see us as the lower life form, is what you're saying. Because
no, not necessarily. I
we do
mean,
that.
they would just be like, I think it would be a neutral question. They'd say, it is. They're culling. They're self-culling. You know what I mean? The same as they cull any other species, they cull themselves.
And humans are, I think a lot about the barbarism of humans. Like in order to survive, we have to kill. We have to destroy another animal or another plant.
And steal its energy.
Yeah, we have to destroy and consume the thing. Actually kill things to consume them. And like how horrific for an alien that didn't, if an alien just subsisted off of light and that was how they got their energy, they would look at us like the most horrific, evil creatures. But if they also consumed and destroyed to live, they'd probably look at us as equals and be very concerned that there would be a war. So like, I don't know, if I came upon a species that just annihilated everything in its path to survive, I'd think of it as a disease.
I think,
and not that humans do everything in their path. That's hyperbole, but the fact that we have to kill to survive.
And there's a big difference between killing a chicken, to eat the chicken, than killing a human being. I mean, right?
It is very likely that their technology, I would say it's the likelihood is 100%, that there exists technologies that we do not have access to simply by the nature of the chemical composition of our planet. It's possible that if aliens exist, they came to exist on a planet that had more oxygen or less nitrogen or something like that, resulting in a different path towards technology. They come to this Earth and they're like, whoa, this is very, very weird. The aliens could be squid-like. They could be giant balls of gas. They could, or, like a thin membrane or something. And we exist the way we are based on the chemical composition of the planet.
Salt water.
There is an interesting argument that alien life will be nearly identical to humans in that the evolution of the eye, based on what we think we know, independently occurred in a bunch of different species for the same reasons. Light sensitivity of cells, and then there was a higher rate of success with a certain shape of certain cells, and eventually the eye forms. I watched this really amazing documentary on it. It may be the case that if we do encounter aliens, they will be very, very, very human-like. They will breathe a similar atmosphere. Why? The oxygen level of our atmosphere is perfect for fire, which you can use to separate elements. And at the basis level, we make metals. But eventually we got to the point where we're synthesizing.
Also cooking food and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, cooking food, more efficient production. But look at dolphins.
This is the argument that I find compelling as well, that the
aliens
forms
might be like human.
Yeah, that the forms that have inhabited Earth are the likely forms that life tends to make, considering the conditions in the universe.
No, but not tends to make, but would succeed in terms of technological advancement.
Thumbs.
Dolphins.
Opposable thumbs.
Very, very smart, they say.
Yep.
Big brains. But they will never smelt because they're underwater and they can't go
Some
out
dolphins
of the water.
listening to this show right now, they're like, you son of a bitch.
Like, I wish I had hands, I'd show him. But you can't, sorry. Can't do it.
Can't
and
smoke
whales,
cigarettes either.
Big brains, super smart. They can probably perceive things we can't. They definitely can with sounds and all that. But they're not going to start a fire. So that's all they'll ever be. But we are in this oxygen-rich environment. Oxygen actually destroys cells, oxidization. And we've evolved to be able to exist here, and we make fire, and then we throw stuff in it, and then that stuff melts, and we separate things, and then we extract chemicals and hormones, and now we have computers and rockets synthesizing fuels and all that stuff.
My big concern is if aliens do exist and they show up and they don't just immediately kill us. I don't think that will happen. But if they did show up, we would not do a good job, or we would really struggle, humanity at large right now, with how to treat them in an ethical way. Because I think our bioethics, generally speaking today, especially in the Western world, especially in America, are very broken. And you look at reproductive technologies as an example, and cloning, right? And the ability to clone, and the question of, can you create a clone of yourself and then take their organs? How do you treat a cloned embryo? How do you treat embryos that are being used for research? There's all of these ethical questions that we're not getting right.
Do you think
we're practicing the wrong thing? We're killing human beings.
Do you think clones have souls?
Absolutely. If they're an individual human, absolutely.
It's like a different soul from you. Like if someone cloned you, it'd be like a different soul.
Well, I mean, identical twins have different souls, but they're biologically identical.
I just tweeted out a video of a nano machine taking a sperm and impregnating an egg with it, and the sperm's just like laying there. And I'm like, we have so many lazy people already. We don't need to take the lazy sperm and make new lazy. It's crazy. But how do you think, Lila, how do we solve for this bioethical problem where we're killing young people? Because it's like a resource struggle. I feel like if people don't, without the resources, we can't support the young. We've always had to leave the weak and suffering behind in the tribal life and things like that because you can't support it. And it does terrify me that they're impregnating eggs with weak sperm. But how do you...
Well, it's funny with the resource thing, just to touch that for a second. We have more resources than we've ever had in arguably human history, and we have the technology to have more people and support more people as a planet than in human history. And all the predictions about, the universe is, the world can't handle more humans, the Malthusian ideology of we're going to have to kill people off because we can't feed the world. That's not come true, because as human beings have grown and populated the earth, our technologies have our mastery of the world has. But anyway, separate from that, though, I think the big question is, what's the correct way we treat each other? Do humans have human rights? And if we have human rights, what are they? And I think most people, I don't know your guys' position, but I think many people today would say, yes, we have human rights. Even the United Nations says there's human rights. And so
the question isn't whether or not we have human rights, it's where is the line? What is a human right and what is not?
Right, exactly. But I think most people would agree that the right to not be killed is a fundamental human right, because if you don't have that, you can't have any other rights, right? And that is the pro-life case in a nutshell. If you're a human, you have human rights, and the first human right is not to be killed. Similarly, our Declaration of Independence, we're endowed by our Creator. So we're created, they're not given to us by each other. We get them from on high. We are endowed with these inalienable rights, and the first of them is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? So life comes first, and all humans have that right, whether you're born or pre-born. It doesn't matter. You're a human, you have that right.
I don't believe there is a way that you can ever really win this battle. And the reason is these
aliens,
pro-abortion individuals are desperately trying to remove themselves from the gene pool, but you are desperately trying to save them. This conflict will result in more and more leftist ideologies, pro-abortion ideologies emerging. In our current system, this means that they can vote, and they will vote for policies that allow them to terminate themselves from the gene pool. Ultimately, then, they will reduce. The pro-life element and conservatives will just have more influence and more children. But then they will stop abortions. That once they have the authority, they'll say, abortion's done. Which means the remaining pro-abortion people will have more and more kids. And those kids will hold the ideology of pro-abortion until they get too many. Then they'll vote for abortion and kill themselves again.
Interesting. Well, I don't see how you stop democracy. I hear you. I think that if we, in like a game theory analysis like that, if that happened just that way, I can see your argument. But there's a lot of other factors at play, which have to do like with podcasts like yours, where people are getting new ideas, they're being exposed to different beliefs. Maybe they were raised by hardcore pro-abortion parents, and they always were told to be feminist and to be pro-woman is to be in support of reproductive freedom, which means to kill your baby. And that's what they were indoctrinated with, basically. I'd argue it's indoctrination. But then they might listen to a podcast on YouTube, and they all of a sudden their world is blown because they get a new perspective on things. So, the beauty of today's crazy media world and just the diversity that comes with that is that people are exposed to different ideas regardless of how they're raised. So the question is, will the truth win out?
Well, my question.
What is the truth, and will the truth win out?
Yeah, what is, because you were saying the right to human life. I think that's a good starting point for life, for humans. But at what point is an egg a human? I wonder, like, I'm like, well,
It's
if it doesn't have a
always
brain, it doesn't have a heartbeat.
No, when it's fertilized.
Is a sperm an egg? Is a sperm a human before it fertilizes the egg? Is it a human right when it's banging on the egg's outer wall? Like, is it only once it's in and that first magical electrification appears, then it's a human all of a sudden? Because it doesn't look like a human.
When a unique set of DNA is created, life begins. It's called
I
conception.
agree that it's living. I agree that it's living, but I don't think it's a human,
So
personally.
sperm egg fusion, and you get a single cell embryo that has its unique set of DNA, nothing like it ever before, and that is going to grow. It's going to self-actualize, you can argue, grow itself, meaning it needs nourishment, but it's going to start exponentially developing more and more cells, developing that heart. The heart's going to beat at just 3.5 weeks. It's crazy how early the heart breaks. 6 weeks, you have brain waves already. So human life, and virtually all biologists agree, it's fertilization. Even Peter Singer, who is that pro-infanticide ethicist from Princeton, says it's at fertilization. Human life begins not with a sperm or an egg. It begins at the sperm egg fusion.
I think the distinction you're making is a person and life. Like,
Yeah,
so
for
it's
sure.
always human because that's the classification. But when does it have personhood? Is what you're talking about.
That's also a good question. But it's like,
it's human rights, not personhood rights.
if you're going to say like so you're going to roll a ball down a hill. At what point does the ball start rolling? First, you're going to push the ball along a flat surface, and
rolling
then
down.
it's going to roll down.
No.
But so if you push it, is it rolling down the hill yet as it's traveling horizontally, or only when it starts to fall down the hill? Because
hold on. You said, is it rolling down the hill? If it's
Yeah,
rolling on a
you
flat
gotta
surface,
figure
the
out-
answer is no.
Exactly.
And if it's going down the hill, the answer
so
is yes.
is it a human? Well, I'd look at a
The answer is
zygote
yes.
and I can't determine. Like from what I've been told, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is not good information. You cannot determine a zygote. Is it called a zygote from another animal zygote?
So
doesn't
you
matter.
can. Well, you can actually, I mean, maybe on the naked eye, looking at it's too small to see. So in that sense, you can't. But as biologists know, how do you know what something is? You look at the parents,
But this
right?
isn't-
So a single cell embryo has a human mother and a human father. A single cell elephant embryo has a elephant mother and an elephant father. So we know it's a human. We know
it
it's a
doesn't
human.
matter at all.
That's just
It doesn't
inductive
matter.
reasoning.
No. This question is nonsensical. Whether or not you can recognize what something is doesn't change what it is. I can't tell if it's gold or pyrite. It doesn't change it from gold or pyrite. If there is a human life and you're like, well, I can't tell if it's human or not, that's like saying someone who's got a disfigurement may not be human. No, they're human. That's it. End
If
of
it
story.
appears to be something, you can kind of play like it is. Like if
Just
someone,
because you don't know what it is doesn't change what it is.
I agree with that.
but if someone comes up to you, a hologram points a gun to your head, and you think it's real, you're gonna probably piss
Thinking
yourself.
something real is not the same as whether or not it is real.
Think of it
There are
this way.
fact statements.
Yeah, but
and
your
there are
body will
perception
react as if
statements.
it is real.
But perception is immaterial to the question of objectivity.
I don't know because
If I'm an
What do you
IVF,
mean you don't-
if I'm an IVF specialist, right? IVF, you're creating new embryos in a petri dish to implant them in a woman down the line, right? But my big aha moment is when I have achieved sperm egg fusion and I have all these embryos now, right? And now I have all these little embryos that I can then go on and implant, and they'll continue to develop into ultimately, some of them, we hope, a full-term baby. I have huge issues with the ethics of IVF. I think it's very, very problematic. But the point is, the IVF specialist knows I'm trying to create a human embryo for these parents that just pay me to do this, right? So I think biologists are in agreement, and we know from, the fact that they have human parents, this is human. It's human, a single cell human, so very, very tiny. Doesn't look like a human the way you and I look like humans, right? But a newborn baby doesn't look like you, right? I mean, they have this huge heads.
And the line of thinking.
So we look different at different stages in our development as humans. We look different. And
So-
sometimes we're so small you can't see you, but that doesn't mean you're not there.
If someone's suffering from what is it called, porphyria or whatever, where like the vampire legend comes from. If someone has some sort of disfigurement or whatever and looks inhuman,
Porphyria.
so they would say it's not a human, and then they would not give it rights. Okay, that's wrong. We've very in recent history understood this. You may not look human, but it doesn't change the fact that you have human rights.
Well, now I'm talking about chimeras. Okay, this is a real thing. They're actually splicing DNA from different
It is
animals.
crazy.
So if a human woman is gestating a chimeric animal of some sort of human pig hybrid or something, is it a human?
Yeah, it's the fact
Well,
that
this
we
is a
are
good
playing.
question.
It's a very good question. We are playing God with human lives, and in these, Frankenstein-like experiments that we're not acknowledging any ethics around it as guardrails. And so we're doing this insane stuff. And I think it's opening the door to all of these abuses of humans, for sure. There's a million frozen embryos in IVF right now.
Well,
million children in deep freeze right now.
Let me ask you. You said if something has human, if someone like a chimera is a human.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think we have to, if they're part human DNA, but then they're part apes, I think we have to proceed very, very. And they were actually able to live and be gestated, right?
Yeah.
That's a big question. Can they
A pig
actually live and be gestated?
With human kidneys and a human liver? Is that a human?
No, I don't think
But
so.
what if it's being gestated in a human woman?
No. What if the pig doesn't have kidneys, but it has a human brain?
This is interesting. I was just having this debate with the YouTuber Destiny about what constitutes a human being. And I was saying that it is your brain is an important part of you as a human. Very important. It's the central control center for your body, right? But as human beings, we are our bodies and we are also our souls.
I disagree.
And there's a
about
lot
that.
of mystery to that in terms of, I think you can observe the soul through nature in a lot of ways, the actions of the soul. But when it comes to, if we were to somehow create a chimera and we were able to do this, I mean, it's a complicated question, which is why I don't think we should be going there.
Well, it's been done.
I mean, it's
The reason
I think the problem is it's been done, but there's not an ability to develop the baby. I think that's where it's failing, right? Isn't that true or no?
We've grown animals with human organs.
Right. That's been done. I'm saying that this sort of 50% achievement, 50% human DNA, 50% some other animal DNA from the beginning. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think that's been achieved.
That's fiction, right?
Right. So I think if it has some human, I would argue, if it has like a human kidney or something in a pig, it's still a pig.
So if that
human
animal,
brain.
the question is,
So it's
A
smart
human
as,
brain in
as
a
smart
pig.
as a human. The intelligence of a 27-year-old can write and paint and do everything, communicate. But you're like, it's a pig.
I would put special ethical protections on that entity, because we are playing God when we shouldn't. We shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's bad. It's wrong. But if we were to do it, it would be wrong to harvest that pig human's organs. It would be wrong to kill them. I think we would have to treat them very carefully.
The reason
and not violate with the rights of this creature that we should not have created, like a Frankenstein experiment. That it's wrong that we're doing it, and it should be banned. It should not be done.
well, but it is. I'm not denying what
But
you're
it's
saying.
being done
since
because
it is
we
being
haven't
done.
banned it, and that's and it's also to some degree there's a lot of funding this crazy experimentation on embryos and humans that is being funded by the government, and that's so horrible we are all complicit
Maybe
in
aliens
that.
are doing it.
You said earlier that
Maybe
the way
aliens are telling them to do it. I don't know, but it's horrible and it shouldn't happen.
you said the way you determine if like a one-day-old zygote is, I think it's the zygote, is a human is by who the parents are, who are the parents that are gestating the thing. So if a human woman is gestating a one-day-old zygote of a chimeric animal, you would just assume it's a human because it's got a human mother. That's a faulty logic. That's an inductive reasoning that fails at that point.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, back to the kind of question of is it a human or not? Like if there was some possibility to have there be a human father, but some like a monkey mother, if that was possible, right? I would say, well, I don't think that we've successfully done that.
I think we have.
It fails when we try.
It fails when you
If
have
it's 50-50.
It fails with a female chimp with human sperm, but according to legend, the Russians did it. But the reason it's not been done in public is because the public would reject it.
Good, as we should.
I would bet a large sum of money that China's already done it.
Well, listen, if anyone is doing it and if anyone is succeeding in doing it, I think we need to apply careful protection of whatever these creatures that we are creating without responsibility, without ethics, irresponsibly. We should treat them carefully and with protection because they are carrying an imprint of humanity in them. So we should be very careful with that.
One of the things that Tim said that I think is important, the idea that we can ban this or we can stop, that is absolute fiction.
Why? We ban rape?
Because
We don't ban China from putting Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps.
I'm talking about us, what we do in the confines of the United States. That's what I'm saying. We can't ban it for China.
Fair enough,
I agree. I agree with you on that.
The things that you're talking about are going to have repercussions throughout all of human, like, or through human history. Like, because you're really what you're getting into is what kind of ways are people allowed to reproduce? What kind of people are allowed to reproduce? What kind of people are we allowed to make when we reproduce? Because in very short order, you're going to be able to decide, I want a child with these traits, those traits.
And that's wrong.
Stuff.
And people,
But you can say it's wrong. Was that?
You can't stop it.
No, you can't. Because you can say it's wrong, but it's coming in another country, in a place with different morals, like whether it be China or
Mexico.
I mean,
People
exactly.
are going to go to Mexico to get their kids genetically engineered if the U.S. doesn't allow it. Then those kids are going to grow up in the United States as genetically engineered. They're going to have DNA from different species that's implanted through some virus. Look, they cured a kid's blindness with the herpes virus, putting some genes in or whatever. It'll come to the point where there will be some dude walking around with cat ears or whatever because his parents were weird anime people. And then you're going to be like, he's part animal.
You're not going to be able to tell billionaires that they can't go to another country and make sure that their children will never get cancer. Like when you've got a billionaire or millionaires and you're like, if you in this country you're not allowed to do it, but you can fly to whatever country in Europe and they'll allow you to edit the gene so your child will never have cancer. So your child will never have this. Will never have any number of genetic defects that you can guarantee that your kids won't have anymore. You are not going to be able to tell people they can't do that.
And there can be ethical treatments depending how it's done. So I think that's an important distinction to make. But back to the kind of question of, well, they're going to do it anyways if it's something that's unethical, right? That we could all agree this is an unethical thing, like, creating a 50%, if it was possible, I don't think it is, but creating a 50%, human and a 50% pig or something. But my point is just because
not the issue.
I don't think it's unethical.
No. Hold on. The percentage rate of someone's DNA doesn't matter.
But just because we can doesn't mean we should, right?
But
and
this
the
is-
whole
this
point
is-
of a law, the whole point of any society, any civilization is to have rules of the road. We don't live physically without rules of the road.
So what do you do?
So what we
when
do
someone from outside the United States is genetically engineered and now lives in the United States?
we treat them with dignity and respect, 1,000%.
What
But
happens?
we still have a responsibility for in our country and whatever country we are a part of. This isn't just the United States. Other countries are called to be ethical too. It's not like just Americans should be ethical. Everybody should be ethical. And there's a lot of amazing countries outside of the United States that I would argue are more ethical than us. Malta, as an example, has eradicated abortion in Europe. So there's countries that are more ethical than us in the West. Chile is a very pro-life Latin American country. But the point is, we should be focused on what is the right thing for a society to do, what's the role of the law, and then we should pursue that instead of saying, well, technology is going to figure it out and eventually we're doomed to it. Think about nuclear warfare, right? We have nuclear weaponry. So we could just say, well, we're all doomed to die by nuclear weaponry at some point. I mean, you could make that same argument, right? But you could say, well, no, if we treat each other ethically and we practice ethics and we have good rule of law and good systems, we can avoid mass destruction.
Well,
Historically,
it's always been like war, historically, not always, but over time. So I'm concerned that a country will develop super soldiers that can like see super long distance,
doing it.
shoot, throw really far, and that they would invade and conquer. And if we don't have that same technology and super soldier program, that we've just become serfs.
I think we can, if we started doing unethical things because another country was unethical, it's just somehow compete with them, we would die by our oin sword in the end.
But if we
so,
didn't,
so in the end,
it's simple.
It's not worth the risk of doing what's unethical just because someone else is, in the hope that you'll save yourself, because you're actually killing yourself.
And then you cease to exist.
And then you cease to exist. So
But
that's why it's better to go down in flames doing the right thing in the end than kill the innocent person.
But what about the nuclear weapons program?
So right now, Republicans are doing literally nothing as Democrats indict and criminally charge a whole plethora of Republicans.
Yeah.
So my focus in terms of all this is cultural. We need cultural influence. You need media influence, and we seem to be winning on that front.
Timcast.
But
Save the day.
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
Did you see
awesome.
it? Yeah, that movie.
Yes.
But
there's
so
good people.
Democrats resort to blunt force. And then you just get Republicans saying, well, this may reach the level of inquiry. We'll have a conversation in the committee about whether or not we could inquire as to what this could mean. So in the long run, you could argue that without any meaningful resistance, what Democrats are doing, then the Republicans cease to exist.
But I have hope that in the human heart is written the moral law. And I've seen this myself. And even in the most distorted, depraved person, there's still that spark of the human law and of goodness. And if we can cultivate that, then we can get these big bad Democrats in this scenario you're talking about, Tim, to do the right thing. And so that should be the end game, right?
Let's
the law,
jump
rule
to
of
the
law is
news.
important, but also
Instead of
helping people do the right thing.
So
because we're all made and called to do the right
until
thing.
they start
We're gonna
to
jump
starve, then they'll eat each
to
other.
political medical news. We have this story from Timcast.com. Mitch McConnell abruptly stops speaking, freezes during press conference. The Senate Minority Leader was escorted out of the room by Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Let me play this video for you. It is saddening, and I would describe it as a seizure, potentially a stroke.
Spinning
You guys
wheel
ready?
of death.
Here we go. Is there... Oh, sorry. I got to turn the audio on.
Bring it up.
No, I just got to press the audio there.
Fortunately, he doesn't speak for 30
Here we go.
seconds, so
Right.
you don't have to worry.
Partisan cooperation and a string of
That's it. That's the video. He says cooperation and a string of, and then just freezes.
It's
I went
for a while,
to
watch.
a fundraiser a long time ago,
Dang.
political fundraiser for seizure awareness, and this guy who suffered grand mal seizures was explaining how often he'll be in public meetings or at work, and he'll freeze exactly like Mitch McConnell did, and people will laugh at him, and he could die. And he was like, awareness on what seizures look like is extremely important because of Hollywood. Everyone thinks you fall to the ground and start spazzing out. Some people said, I think it's like an absent seizure, where you just freeze and lock up. And a lot of people were tweeting that this is may be what it was. Apparently, he said that he got lightheaded and he was fine and then went on to have like a normal meeting afterwards or whatever. But I think what we're seeing here is, we talked a whole lot about aliens and law and morality. Our political leaders, they keep winning no matter what. No matter what. Because our culture is dead. Because this country will just walk into a booth and rubber stamp D or R without a thought. Because it is a dead culture.
So against democracy.
So they vote for Pelosi. They vote for Mitch McConnell. They vote for people who should have retired 30 years ago. And I don't see it changing unless there's a hard fall.
You think it was TV that deadened culture?
No. I think it's like it's a Strauss-out generational theory.
So I would argue what you're describing, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, Tim. And I think that it is ultimately a spiritual sickness that we are facing because we have lost the plot. Like, what is the point of human existence? Is it to just take? Is it to just, become more powerful or more perfect? Like, what's the point of human existence? Is it to love and to serve and ultimately for eternity for God? Or is it to take? And that difference, I think, if people are kind of wishy-washy on that, they don't know what their purpose is, then we don't really care enough. And then we just, maybe stamp, like you're saying, D or R or whatever it is. We're going in and we're not really caring enough to really fight. But I do think a lot of people are fighting for the country right now. And they care, and they're raising young families. I know my family, we're raising a young family. We're passionate. We care about the future. We think there is a future. And enough of those people, if enough of us do that, we can change it. It's going to be painful and hard at points, but I think we can change the country and make it better. So I don't think it's hopeless.
Dianne Feinstein, remember? She's out for what was it, like a couple months or something? How long was she out for? And then she's like, I was here the whole time. I absolutely despise these people. Mitch McConnell, we can talk about his politics all day and night. I'll tell you, I don't like he does this, I don't like he does that. But there is nothing that gives me more disdain for this man than this medical episode. I have no sympathy, no empathy for his freeze up, for his stroke or seizure, because he is gripping on to a leadership position that a younger person needs to have to help this country, and he's incapable of doing it. But it's not just him. It is a problem in this country and all of Congress where they're all, it's just, and look at who was running for president. We're going to get Biden versus Trump. I think Trump's better than Biden, but even Trump is older. This is one of the big reasons we were saying DeSantis is probably better is that he's a lot younger. Unfortunately, however, I don't think DeSantis is going to be able to pull it off because he can't seem to get a hold of his campaign.
Well,
these people need to leave.
Youth in and of itself, I think, is not the key. But to your point, I think, if you're very to the point of having strokes and you need medical leave, you should take care of your health and not be trying to lead the country in this case. But I think it's not just youth, it's wisdom. And I think there's a crisis of wisdom. And that's where we have a lot of failed. Even young leaders are terrible. So it's not like just because you're young, you're better. If you're young, you could be even more foolish.
McConnell doesn't seem to have any real wisdom about him either. That
could be true. I will not argue with that. I mean, I think he has done some good things in his career, but I do think I agree with you. We need fresh, not just fresh leadership. We need good leadership.
Healthy brains, man. Less
leadership.
calcified. I don't know if it's calcified pineal gland, but less aspartame in people's diets, less high fructose corn syrup, corroding the neural network.
Look, someone pointed this out on Twitter. Any job in this country, you are 81 years old and suffer a seizure, they would say, look, it's time you go home, right? This is not the job for you. In fact, can he even be driving anymore? I'm not trying to rag on older people, but there is a point at which you are too young for a job and too old for a job. We're not going to put 12-year-olds in the coal mines. We should be putting 81-year-olds in Congress.
Do you think we should do age limits now?
It is a tough question because of the rate of technology. It should be more about capability.
I agree with that. I think if you're struggling with serious medical conditions, just like as you described from work, you could take
Betterment.
a leave. Yeah.
So would it be Congress
agree
that
with that.
votes to have the other congressman removed if there's a medical thing?
I would love it right now if Congress voted to the Senate voted to remove Mitch McConnell.
It's almost an imperative. You know, we're missing a Kentucky representative right now. Or a Kentucky
Feinstein
senator.
should be out, and McConnell should be out, and
It's tricky when
Pelosi
they've been democratically elected, right? That is tricky. Back to what you were talking about earlier, Tim. You know, if we got into a system where we get to just out people because we consider them physically unfit, but they were democratically elected, you know, it gets into
but you can. We remove people from Congress all the time, or not all the time. It's happened a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
You vote to send someone home. I wonder if Vivek Ramaswamy, he had a couple proposals. One, publicly, he said there should be a civics test in order to vote. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think that makes sense. What I really like is you have to sign up for the selective service if you want to vote. If you sign up for the selective service, you get a voter ID. And if you have that, you're allowed to vote. And so I think that will solve a great deal of our problems overnight.
Vivek actually clarified on the show last week. He thinks when you turn 18, you don't have voting rights till you're 25 unless you pass a civics test or do 6 months of community service or military service. So it's either or.
I like the civics test.
Do you or don't?
I disagree.
So you don't like the civics test?
I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it necessarily solves the problem. See, the thing is about signing up for the selective service is you're basically saying I'm willing to die for this country. And guess what? It's a very simple sign on the dotted line that no Democrat would be able to convince a run-of-the-mill urban liberal to sign. But every conservative would be like, I love this country. Put my name down. However, a lot of people are going to say, I wouldn't sign up for that. This country is corrupt. No. If the voting base is just comprised of people who have pledged their lives to this country, you are not going to have these corrupt people because they can't get elected.
Yeah, but what if some crazy president was like, oh, now all you voters signed up for the selective service, we're going to war.
Because they vote. Because it's only those people who get to vote. So when the president comes in and says, I'm initiating the draft, it's those people who say, recall, impeachment.
Anything that like shrinks the number of ignorant votes, I'm for. So limit voting like in any way possible, in my opinion. I don't think that it requires service. I do get where you're coming from. I understand the idea that you have to have something on the line. I personally think that maybe owning a business or owning like something like that, because you can start a business with a cell phone. So like if you actually start a business, then you have some kind of skin in the game, and the barrier for entry is real low for that. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I just don't think that you have to go through serving the country.
But you don't.
Should be
signing up for the selective service does not mean you're going to do any service.
Oh, okay. So you're. Oh, yeah. Right. So,
it means that if the United States is invaded, you've pledged your life to defend it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people argue that, but the draft and World War I, II, and the Korean War and Vietnam. I'm like, no. Listen, my point is this: there's corruption right now. It may just be an idealistic, perfect system, but imagine if the only people who could vote, meaning there could not be a foreign invasion of Syria. If everybody who had to go fight it were the people who were voting, they'd be like, I'm not going to go do that, so I'm voting against these people. Everyone else who sits in their ivory tower sipping tea being like, we should go to war for oil, wouldn't have a vote. And if they wanted to go, they'd vote. And you know what? There may come a point where, let's say you've got 350 million people in this country, only 175 actually choose to sign up for selective service to vote, and there's a split vote. And 100 million say we want to go to war for this reason, and 75 say you don't. But that's the point of saying I pledge to this system. It's not always going to be about what you want, but everyone else voting for it has pledged the same thing as you. And
we don't even have everyone voting, though, who I think is well equipped to vote. So
this is
I disagree. I disagree with that entirely. I think
there's a lot of people that don't vote that I think should vote, is what I'm saying.
Really?
Yeah, especially like in the pro-life space and in the space where people have values. They love the country. They love what we were founded on. They believe in the future for the country. Often, yes, many are active and politically involved, but the thing is, a lot of people who are doing that are busy running their businesses and raising their families, and so maybe they're not doing every election. Maybe they're not as involved as they need to be. So we encourage more civic engagement. We need more of it.
Look.
And Mitch McConnell, his biggest issue is not. I hope he's well, but I think his biggest issue is a failure to lead on fundamental human rights. And the Republican Party has made some strides because it's in our platform that life begins at fertilization and that abortion should not be permitted and that legal protection is deserved by all preborn humans. But Mitch McConnell has not led like that in the Senate. He's been squishy on it.
The fastest way to get that is exactly what I just said. I went, when I worked for these nonprofits 15 some odd years ago, they said, anybody here want to go see Death Cab for Cutie live? And I was like, that's like my favorite band. I would love to go see them live. And they were like, here's your vinyl all access pass. Here's your stack of voter registration forms. You're going to walk around and register people to vote, but it gets you backstage access. And I was like, yes. And I walked around back, you want to vote? You want to vote? I did not know their political affiliation, but come on, it's Chicago. They're all Democrats. What if I walked up to them and said, hey, do you want to vote? And they went, sure, I'll sign it up. Just sign that you want to join the draft and fight in the military. And they'd be like, no way. I'm not signing that. And they'd leave. And then you'd go to some like country music event where some guy's wearing an American flag saying about how he loves this country. And you'd walk up and be like, anybody want to vote? And they'd be like, sure. Would you sign a pledge saying you'll fight for this country if we get invaded and be in the draft? You'd be like, I love America. And they'd sign it.
Yeah,
and then
I think that's a good.
But what concerns me,
if you're not willing to serve in the most dire of circumstances, meaning there's no obligation in the immediate, only in the event of us being attacked, then you don't get to tell us how we run this country.
I like that, except if all these people sign up for the selective service and then the president's like, we're going to war, and they're like, no. You're like, well, you already voted for me.
It's called impeachment.
Get your gear. And then the generals step in, and it's like, what are you gonna like? We're going to war. Like, there's not enough time when the president declares. The president shouldn't be declaring war. First of all,
it's not his job. A draft can't happen overnight.
Can't declare war.
Right.
Can't.
Only Congress.
Congress is the only group of people that can do.
And
that
I also think you're going to have greater alignment between the people who are eligible for conflict. First of all, there will still be a military, meaning a draft will not necessarily occur. That's the point. It's a very, very simple solution that requires very little other than commitment that typically does not happen.
So you would equally draft men and women, Tim, in that scenario?
Women can work in factories, and women can work in homes, and women can work in hospitals.
To help with the war effort. But you wouldn't have them do the same jobs.
Soldiers march on their bellies. So if we don't put women in combat, they can certainly do all sorts of infrastructure-based support work and even maintaining households if you're more traditional.
I agree with what you're saying is that we need more patriotism and a sense of a shared project, that this is our country that we should care about together and make stronger and better. I completely agree with that. Not sure about that approach necessarily, but if there's a way we can, the best way I would argue to do that, what I'm describing, that shared project, is just a lot of education, shoring up good institutions, shoring up the American family. Some of the best public policy that I think we could be doing right now is not affecting how we're voting, but it's affecting how we support the American family. Investing in the American family through child tax credits, through giving more support to the American family, giving them write-offs, giving them more, even a subsidy. Give families a subsidy. If you have a child, you get a subsidy. Especially if you're a married couple, you get a subsidy because we want to encourage those things.
3 kids, no taxes.
I would say, that sounds great.
A lot of people would have 3 kids.
That sounds great.
Absolutely.
Or like an 85% reduction in your taxes, or anything.
I mean,
I'm sorry. Married and 3 kids, no taxes.
They are our most precious resource, children. They're treated like crap in this country, especially if they're pre-birth. And if we change that and our public policy helped change that, I think there would be beautiful outcomes. Because what matters, it's not about our selfish individual pursuits. I'm not going to have kids because I just want to travel the world or whatever it is. It's about children are the future, and we learn how to love through sacrifice and through service and through responsibility to each other. And if we could encourage that through public policy, I think that would be a beautiful thing. Not to force it, but to encourage it.
What if a couple of businessmen, a man and a woman, get together like, yo, let's have some kids. We don't even have to raise them. We just have them, and then we'll get tax credit. And then they have kids. The kids
have
become
to
criminals.
be married.
They get married. They have kids. The kids are criminals. They're horrible bullies at school.
That happens now.
Yeah, but would they get credit? Would they get the same tax credits as the people who are committed to their family?
Yes.
That's a bad move, because you'd have a lot of piss poor parents in that situation.
You still do today. If we said, if you are married and have 3 kids, you don't pay taxes, you are more likely to see people stay together. There right now, there's a guy and a lady, and they had 3 kids already, and they're split up, and that's bad for the kids. If we said if you're married, or how about this? Single family household, 3 kids, married, meaning the guy and the woman have to live together with the kids, then you get a tax break.
Wait, you're saying they're not married, but
Have to be married,
Okay.
have to live together, and have at least 3 kids, and then you're exempt from income tax.
Wow. You can send your kids to college if you want. You could buy cars. You could actually go on vacation with your kids. I mean,
That's bold, Tim, but I mean, we need to encourage the American family, because right now it is too hard to raise a family, and this should be not too hard, meaning impossible, but it's harder than it should be, and we need to make this country the friendliest place in the world to raise a family. That should be the American dream.
Agreed.
And that should be the focus of public policy.
Let's talk about the current state of politics. We have this story from the Daily Mail. Oh boy. Dramatic moment. Hunter's lawyer told prosecutors sweetheart deal was off after judge eviscerated agreement. Apparently, one of the guys yelled out, I think this was Biden lawyer Chris Clark, said, "I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. Then we'll rip it up." He says you can't get around that. So basically what happens is they go in. Hunter Biden's supposed to plead guilty to this sweetheart deal where he gets a slap on the wrist and no jail time. The judge then says, well, hold on there a minute. This doesn't include any FARA violations, any potential FARA, this plea agreement, just tax evasion, right? So are you going to charge him later on? The prosecution says we could. Biden's lawyers are like, hey, no way, no way. The judge then's like, what's going on? Looks at the deal's off. They have to go, there's a recess. They negotiate. It looks like the deal might be back on. Now the deal's on hold. Here's what people are speculating. It seems that Hunter Biden's lawyers went to these prosecutors, and the deal was they will not prosecute Hunter on anything if he just accepts these little charges and a slap on the wrist. It only says on paper these charges, but trust us, we're not going to come after you for anything else. But the judge asked the question. If the judge just rubber stamped it, it'd be done, and their backroom deal is done. But the judge was like, what about FARA? Well, the prosecution can't lie. It's a question of fact. Can you charge him? Well, we can. They get mad saying you're double crossing us. That's what it seems like. It seems like some shady backroom dealing to throw some red meat at the press and create a scenario where the media will say Hunter Biden pleads guilty. Look, the DOJ is not biased. They went after the president's own son. What do you mean they're going after Trump for political reasons? They went after the president's son. It's totally non-biased. But that backroom deal was no good when the judge spotted it.
what are the FARA violations? What's FARA?
Was it Foreign Agent Registration Act or something like that? That if you're acting on behalf of a foreign government, you have to register. Oh. And Hunter Biden was with Burisma and probably a bunch of other countries, and he did not.
Well, that's odd. You think I mean, personally,
if the judge didn't know this, and if they got any other judge, and that judge was like, looks in order to me, I guess, bang, done.
Wasn't Hunter Biden's computer full of pornography?
Well, yeah, of him.
Well.
Yeah, so it's just the whole thing is obviously very, very sad, but it also just shows the state of the culture, right? That, you know, the president, even the first family, right? The son is involved in all these things. And I think it's one thing to talk about tax evasion. It sounds like it happened and he's pleading guilty, but all of these other things, you know, think about it. We don't, I think as a society, we're not hard on porn. We think porn's fine. Most people use it. It's not a big deal. It's legal. And so, you know, Hunter Biden can do all this stuff and it's crazy. And then, but he did tax evasion. So that's the bad thing that he did.
This is crazy. Let me read this.
And all the stuff about prostitutes and strippers. And it's all dark stuff.
Noriko warned lawyers the deal was unprecedented and possibly unconstitutional and could prevent prosecutors from going after Biden for other crimes in the future. She insisted she was acting in Hunter's interest by making sure he knew exactly how much protection he would or would not get under the deal. But she also unloaded on it, sometimes in personal terms about the position it put her in as an arbiter. You keep telling me that I have no role. I shouldn't even be reading this thing, she vented. Her admonitions forced a tense negotiation after the judge left her courtroom. Teams of lawyers faced off in talks for an hour into the hearing. They had to hash out among themselves what exactly they had agreed to, then sell it to a judge who was increasingly skeptical. The end result ended in a politically perilous delay for Biden's campaign, set to be helmed from Wilmington in a state, blah, 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 blah. We get it. This is crazy that the judge was so shocked. The judge said the unprecedented nature of the agreement forced her to step in. But bizarrely, she also said she sympathized with Hunter. Mr. Biden, I know you want to get this over with, she told him at the end of the 3-hour slugfest, which had the effect of pushing off Hunter's plea and extending his legal woes into late summer and the fall as his father gears up his presidential re-election campaign. So maybe Roseanne was right about those military tribunals, right?
Interesting.
I mean, it still blows my mind that he's gotten away with as much as he's gotten away with. That this is that he might be able to walk away from this with a plea deal. I don't have a whole lot more to add other than it's just really a black pill, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's the most emperor has no clothes thing, and that what that metaphor is like everyone can see that the emperor's not wearing anything, but the emperor's telling people, "Oh, I'm wearing a robe," so everyone's like, "Yeah, he's wearing a robe," but they all know he's not, and then it's a little kid that's like, "He's not wearing any clothes," so like we all know Hunter Biden did this stuff. The evidence is there. I mean, I maybe we should say I don't know, but it is very apparent. There's a lot of evidence. And for Joe Biden just to be pretending that it's like not a big deal is the most insane abuse of power, legal authority, and executive authority in this country I've ever seen in my lifetime. I mean, I saw George Bush take the world to war because of weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen a president do. This is robbing our culture of the truth. It is not healthy. We need to change this.
War is pretty bad.
Yeah,
but it's been happening my whole life. This is like brainwashing people to be evil.
That doesn't make war less bad, but I get what you're saying. But
this is like it's like so in plain sight, which makes it, in my opinion, more disgusting. It's like little kids are like, it's okay to lie.
Well,
Joe?
it's interesting because I think the president is the liar word is a good one for him because he professes this faith. So, I'm Catholic, as many people know. I became Catholic in college. And Joe Biden says, like, he's Catholic. Like, he ran kind of on, I'm the Catholic grandpa. I'm this good man. I'm the uniter. I'm this, man of integrity. And, separate from this whole scandal, right? He is the most pro-abortion president, the most pro-sexual deviancy president in probably our history. Maybe Obama was up there on abortion, but he's been more pro-abortion than even Obama. So the White House is a disgrace today.
I gotta say,
it is an absolute disgrace. And you saw like the topless, woman or man who was dressing as a woman and had fake breasts and was topless. There were 3 that were topless. I mean, what a shame that this has become our White House and our leadership, pro-abortion, pro-sexual deviancy, pro-chaos and unreality. A man is a woman is a man.
And I gotta
now
say,
pro-this. It's
Ian,
a shame. It's a
he
shame.
said this is like the worst thing he's done, but he also sniffs kids and like inappropriately touches them and things like that.
That is very weird too.
It might be the time
it's odd.
The time and the place because I feel like the earth is in the most desperate situation it's ever been in my lifetime right now. And we need real, like, straightforward leadership. So it's like coupled with that. It's
Trump.
like what he did. Yeah, it's not that bad. He just lied about his son being an abusive pornography guy or whatever. But like, or a lie. He had his son do billion-dollar deals. It's like, okay, it's not as bad as murdering 100,000 people.
Or murdering a million babies, allowing a million babies a year to be murdered.
But we need, like,
horrible.
George Bush had the leeway to take us to war in 2003. We don't have the leeway to mess around right now. This is like, get your shit together or we're done.
I think he just needs to be voted out ASAP. I mean, there's no, I pray for the president, actually. I believe conversions are possible, but we are in a severe crisis because of this, not just because of this White House. Obviously, it's lending to the problem. There's just systemic rot right now across the country.
I don't know if you were going to ask this, Phil, but what'll happen is if we don't seize moral authority on Earth, it'll become the Economic Forum and the Chinese Communist Party will seize moral authority.
But where do we ground our moral authority, right? And that goes back to the stuff that, we were talking about earlier. But if we don't get first things right, first human rights are protected for the most vulnerable members of a society. If we can't treat the most vulnerable correctly, and if we can't shape, men are off with hookers and pornography and women are on OnlyFans. I mean, all of this cultural chaos that we're enveloped in, where are we going to have the moral authority to go say we're better than China, we're going to go to war with China? We need to fix the rot in our country and in our culture.
I feel like if Ian was dictator of the earth, it would be the most brutal totalitarian regime ever experienced.
It would be one hell of a ride, man.
Forced DMT.
There's no way. Oh, okay.
There's
no way. I don't think there's any way to dictate Earth. That's the most insane thing. What you're saying.
I think Ian has a lot of good intentions. It's just we got to form the conscience here. Form our morality.
I don't think porn. Well, first, I think porn means a lot of things. There's really horrible sex going on the internet on YouPorn and things. But then there's also really loving sex happening on YouPorn. Like you see the occasional video of 2 people that really like each other. And like,
is that a thing, YouPorn?
Yeah, it's YouPorn. Sitcom. You know, it's
Oh,
it's
really?
a porn site. Yeah,
I
XTube. There's all
But
these different ones.
if it's beautiful, loving sex between two people and it's truly loving, then it should be for just them in the context of marriage, and it's gonna potentially bring life into the world because sex is designed to do that, and so they need to be prepared to raise those children, and they shouldn't be selling it for people to watch on the internet.
Well,
if
I've
it's really
learned-
loving sex.
I've learned how to have sex from certain videos.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Like different positions, different rhythms, like and that's like was helpful for me in the long run. So I don't think it's all evil and like we should just never watch ever sex. I personally.
Well, I think that's an interesting question because I think for example, I think if you're in a marriage and you are wanting to love your spouse better, I think it's absolutely appropriate to learn more about sex so that you can learn how to have the best sex with your spouse. And the best way to do that is with your spouse, right? That's what I think, not by watching other people have sex.
Well, sometimes if people are in an insulated environment, they just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. That's all they know because they don't know there's other methodologies.
The problem with watching people have sex is typically people do that so that they can have sexual gratification from that.
Yeah,
it's not like a class.
I agree with that because
it's
if you
for orgasm, it's pornography for orgasm typically.
if you let your mind think of the person on the video, that's like demoralizing. But if you watch the porn and then think about your girlfriend, that's like a healthy. It feels a lot healthier, and I use the technique on the girlfriend.
Well, I would say that sex is for two people who have committed to each other for life, and that they're in that commitment, they're willing to bring children into the world because sex brings life. Even when you use contraception, it fails. 50% of the people who have abortions were using contraception. So contraception is not some fail safe. It fails. You know, it doesn't always work. And so marriage is the beautiful solution to all of this. And in a marriage, I think you can definitely, maybe study about how do we have sex with each other better, but I don't think pornography has any role in that. I've heard people say, well, we watch porn as a couple in order to have a stronger and more loving relationship, and I don't think that really works in the real world. One of the top reasons for divorce is pornography.
I wonder if
That's
the
like, I
end
think
result.
the second top reason listed for why people divorce is pornography. At the end of the day, you're sexually visualizing someone who's not your spouse.
I wonder
and you
if
should
the
reserve that for just
end
your
result
spouse
of
because
all
that's
of
your
this
one flesh you've
is
committed to.
Just like the left upload their brains to computers, and then humans, the conservative humans, just stay and have families and live normal, traditional human lives.
Do you think? What were you say, Phil?
Well, I mean, to Tim's point, I've mentioned before, I think at some point there's going to be like actual protection for people that are not augmented, like the way that we have carved out space for the Amish in the United States, how they don't have to follow the same laws that everyone else does. There will be people that are going to say, I'm not going to get any kind of augmentation or whatever. And there's going to be people that are going to be augmented that are going to have to protect them from other people that are augmented, like real sci-fi kind of shit.
And they're like,
But here's the thing. I mean, the whole thing about, the traditional people will go to the traditional things and then everyone else will go crazy. I think all people, we have the same human nature. And so we have a lot of shared struggles, right? And then bad ideology can make us do bad behaviors that ultimately can warp our natures. But I think all people are called to the same goodness. And so I would say liberals on the left should get married too. They should have children too. They should be faithful too. They should be against pornography and abortion and all these things too. And I think some are. I mean, I know, for example, some more progressives entering the pro-life movement, and a lot of them doing amazing work in the pro-life movement. And many of them are, as they're learning about sex and life and bioethics, many of them are becoming not just pro-life, but they're becoming, okay, I'm pro-marriage, I'm pro these more traditional values, but I can still maybe have more left-leaning beliefs on maybe immigration or these other topics, but they're very passionate about marriage now as well as life and as, what are seen as the more traditional values. So I think the traditional values are not just for conservatives. If it's true, if it's morality, it should be for everybody.
like I do think men and women are different. Testosterone, I've noticed. I just started working out like a week, 2 weeks ago, and my testosterone's been out of control. Like my sex drive's been like a rocket, and
Important information.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And I think of it as like abstinence.
The conversation tonight, especially considering our guest,
Lila's
is killing me. I'm sitting here dying.
Well, she's talking about babies. It's our thing.
I know. But Ian talking about fairly intimate details about his
to the top
history
yes.
and stuff.
Oh, continue. But it feels like abstinence.
I'm loving it.
Like, if you were to say, like, I don't know, are you suggesting like delete all the porn sites, prevent anyone from being able to see it ever, kind of?
Yes,
thing?
I think we should ban pornography, and I also think that we should, as a society, move towards, and we should set up say, hey, monogamy is awesome. We should celebrate monogamy, marriage. And we also, I think, should encourage people to not be sexually active until they're married.
One of the things that I hear you talking about encouraging, but I feel like you want to get rid of things. So you're talking about legislation.
Well, definitely porn and abortion.
So
yes.
legislation. See, that's where I have
especially
a problem.
abortion. I mean,
I definitely get your point on abortion. I've been feeling it all night. So and
because
fair
they're
enough.
human. Because if we believe they're human beings or agree that they're human beings, and this is the pro-life case just boiled down. It is always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human. Most people agree with that.
Unless we're at war.
Abortion, well, in that case, it's
Not
still
innocent.
wrong because under just war theory, you're not supposed to target civilians, right? Sometimes they die accidentally, but you can't intentionally target the civilian, right?
And enemy combatants
So-
are not innocent.
Yeah, but when
Exactly.
you
So-
firebombed Dresden because they were running product through the city, you
Not
know,
innocent.
There can be war crimes. There
Not
can be
innocent.
war crimes. So the idea of a crime within war means it's always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent person, an innocent human. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human. Therefore, abortion is always wrong. And that means not only should we not have abortions, but we should ban abortions because these are human beings that deserve equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment says that we have equal protection. We should have equal protection under the law, all persons. And no state has the right to deprive life of any person without due process.
And the only
There's no due process
arguments
for the unborn child
that
right
the
now.
pro-abortion crowd has is just to say that babies aren't alive.
Right, which is I mean, deep down, I think most people know that's completely
I think
ridiculous.
Vaj said on this show, I asked
If it
him,
wasn't alive, the child wasn't alive, you wouldn't need to kill them.
I asked him, when does he think life begins? And he said sometime after birth, a few months after birth, something like that, I think he said.
Yeah,
No.
that's the exact same argument that that people that would argue for post-birth abortions make.
These are the kind of people that like torture squirrels and stuff.
I would
like,
argue,
it's not alive, it can't think.
I would argue for when it becomes a human, not necessarily. I do believe it's living tissue and then it becomes a human over time. But I want to get back to porn. You want to say every day, if we banned it, it feels like this forced abstinence mentality that I've been told my whole life doesn't work. Like if you tell a kid don't have sex, they just go off and get pregnant when they're 15 because they don't have any sexual education.
Sure.
And so to prevent it, anyway, you know what I'm
Well, there's a multi-billion-dollar pornography industry, right? And so we can penalize that to say, no, you can't be, because there's a lot of sex trafficking that happens in it, a lot of children that are, I mean, the harms associated with the creation of porn are so numerous. Children caught up in it. I mean, child pornography, child assault material has been proliferating online.
Once
right?
you start talking about like child pornography, now you're talking about a different topic because I understand that there are correlations and there are links, but the topic that we're discussing, if we're talking about adult entertainment, that's adult stuff, because there's no one at this table is in any way gonna be pro child child rape or anything, which is all it is. So the associations with adult movies and then with child rape, I think they're far enough different where we can at least say, hey, the adult industry doesn't lead to child rape. Child rape happens
I hear,
independently.
I hear
let's
what
jump
you're
to this
saying,
story.
but the reality is with the proliferation of pornography in general, it creates sexual appetites and addictions that need to be continually stimulated with going down this rabbit hole of more and more violent or rape-centered pornography.
That's the same
or
argument.
Let's
that against
move on.
children. So it's all interconnected, unfortunately, because it's all, I think, ultimately abusive.
This next
So
story
we have
is also
this,
interconnected.
we have a story from Timcast.com. Kevin Spacey acquitted of sexual assault charges in London. There's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today, Spacey said. He was found not guilty of the 9 sexual assault charges filed against him in the United Kingdom. And the interesting thing I'm seeing from this story is that there are a lot of people, I'm seeing it split. Online, they're saying, we know he's guilty anyway. And there are other people saying this proves the Me Too moral panic was complete BS. So what do you think? Is Kevin Spacey guilty no matter what, even if the court found him not guilty? Because I think there was one report that he was witnessed being like on one of the planes with Epstein or something like that. Or was he falsely accused because of Me Too woke victim culture?
My first thought is that he's innocent until he's proven guilty. And if he wasn't proven guilty, he's innocent. That's just the way our legal system works. Apparently this is in the UK. It doesn't work like that in the UK. I don't know.
I don't know enough about the accusations against him, so it's kind of hard to say.
He grabbed a bunch of dudes' junk.
I mean,
that's
that's
the
horrible.
story.
If that is true, should not have happened, and it's wrong. So I think it's hard to kind of. I wouldn't speculate myself just because I don't I haven't studied the allegations against him. I do think that just because something doesn't turn up a guilty verdict in a court of law doesn't mean the person's automatically innocent, of course. They're innocent in terms of the law, but that doesn't mean in society that's a good person to hang out with necessarily. So I think it depends on what were the allegations, and I'd have to study them to make any kind of opinion.
That's a good point. I'm not saying he didn't do it. It's different. He's just legally innocent.
Right, of course. And that's
And
why
I think-
the court of law matters a lot.
I think some of the people who accused him died, right?
I've heard that.
Something like that.
I do think this is part, back to what you were saying, I think you were kind of speaking to maybe a concern about authoritarianism. Was that kind of where you're going with that?
I'm very, very anti-government. So.
I see. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to being wary of a government getting too big and too powerful. So I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. But I'm speaking more when I talk about, sexual ethics, less about the government imposing exactly whether or not you make sexual mistakes. I don't think that's even possible, right? It's one thing to ban pornographers from selling porn. It's another thing to, have a camera in every house to see, are you looking at porn? That I would never say is the right thing to do. That's abuse in and of itself. But I think the question that I'm more speaking to is what's the right way for us to behave in a society? What's healthiest? What's best? What's the moral path? And, this whole Kevin Spacey story, unfortunately, whether or not he is the abuser, it's inconclusive. It seems from just this headline. We don't know. I mean, the court found him not guilty. I haven't studied his case. Is what I'm saying. He's innocent in this case, obviously, with the court. But there is I would just say, all around society, there is chaos in male-female relationships. I think we all agree with that. People are, and there was a Pew research that came out saying that the large majority of people are unhappy with dating. Most think dating is worse today than it's ever been. People, a lot of women feel objectified, and then they're objectifying themselves on OnlyFans. A lot of men feel like there's no women to date that are good anymore. So there's total chaos. And I would argue that's because we've forgotten first principles about the moral way to treat each other, that sex belongs within marriage, that sex can bring life into the world. So you should be prepared for that and take responsibility for that. When we forget these first principles, then we open the door to all this chaos. And I think we're living the fruit of the sexual revolution, which basically uprooted all sexual mores and said, as long as there's consent, you're good to go, whatever. And I think that's brought a lot of unhappiness and brokenness today.
I think that there's a lot of truth to your point there. The gender roles, the fact that men and women don't have the clear distinction as to what is a man's role and what is a woman's role in relationships nowadays, I think is something that you're seeing the effects. Like you said, you're seeing the effects in society. I think you've got a lot.
And
socialization was a huge element of marriage as well. For women who were mostly hanging out with other women, they want to have a husband they can brag about to their friends. And they also want a good husband. And men not only want a good wife, but they want someone that they can be proud of. And both the man and the woman are like, I feel really good when people see who I'm with.
Well, marriage is such a beautiful institution. And as a Catholic, it's a sacrament. It's such a beautiful thing because it not only can bring new life into the world. And I think that is the primary purpose of marriage, is the ability to bring life. And some people maybe are infertile, but most people, they get that beautiful opportunity. But it also brings harmony between the sexes, where we're working in this beautiful way in harmony together. And we've lost harmony in a lot of ways in our culture.
Like psychically deadened to the harmony of nature. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's dietary, personally. Could be a lot of stuff. Social media is messing people up, staring at computer screens for more than 2 hours a day.
I think if there's one thing that you could do to change that, I think getting rid of no-fault divorce would have a massive impact on American society. I think that, like, the Knowles, I think it was Michael Knowles that said, like, if, like, the way that him and his wife were saying, there will never be a divorce, because if there is a divorce, whoever proposes the divorce gives up everything, or something like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, whoever proposes the divorce should be saying, look, I'll give up everything, not like, I want a divorce and I'm getting half of the...
That's the prenup. It just says anybody who proposes a divorce removes all rights to any claims and any property and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Unless
I mean, that might be good.
Abuse or like, infidelity or something. So one of the old rules of that you could get a divorce, like
I just think abolish no fault divorce.
Yeah, I think that getting rid of no fault divorce would be a good thing, because nowadays people do look at marriage like I'm extra
Tax credit.
serious. Yeah, but because I think there are a lot. I think that men might think like that. I don't think women think of things like that. I think that they want to say they like the I'm married kind of like mystique that goes with it more than men would. But at the same time, there are plenty of people that would get married just for a tax credit too.
After last year, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, there was all of these articles, and we just did actually a satirical video at Live Action about these articles, but they were from like Vox and these different news companies about all these people who said my sex life is going to change forever because Roe was overturned. Now I'm going to have to be really careful about who I have sex with.
Wasn't it really funny how the leftist women were like, we're going to boycott sex,
right?
And then conservatives were like, no, wait, don't.
I mean, but right, but it just shows like, I mean, first of all, it is a fact that abortion is backup contraception, and even the people who claim contraception stops abortion, they know that and they're lying.
That's
Contraception only increases the abortion rate ultimately because it gives people this false sense of security that, oh, I'm going to have sex. I'm not ready for being a parent. I'm not even married. I'm going to have sex. Oops. I get pregnant. Okay, well, abortion's my backup contraception. That's the way it's operating. That's why we have 2,500 abortions a day in this country. I would say more important even than your case for abolishing no-fault divorce. If we abolished abortion, which is killing people, then it would change sexual ethics. It already is changing sexual ethics in places where, even from the people who say, yeah, it's changing my sexual behavior, places where abortion is illegal.
My concern, though, is that people do it in back alleys with the most gruesome methodologies if we don't change the culture's mentality before we legislate that they can't do it anymore.
We've got to do both because the law is the teacher. So, that, a lot of women and a lot of men who are pressuring for abortions, if abortion's not readily accessible, many of them don't have abortion. So the law does influence your behavior. We know that with seatbelts, when there's a lot of wear a seatbelt, you wear the seatbelt. Back in the 80s, no one, I think, wore seatbelts because there was no law. So the law makes...
wrong.
I'm from New Hampshire, and we don't have seatbelt laws up there, but I wear my seatbelt.
We're in Virginia, guys.
Seatbelt laws are wrong.
Safety first.
Yeah,
Well,
but bottom line is the law does matter, but I agree with you. I think you're making a good point that the culture matters a ton too. And that's where, talking about this stuff is so important and having open conversations. Because I think a lot of people, ultimately we want love, like sex at the end. Yes, there's sexual gratification. But most people today, I think deep down, people in general, they want love. They want a loving relationship, that girl of your dreams, that man of your dreams. They're not just looking for an orgasm. They're looking at the end of the day for love. And people who just hook up ultimately feel empty in the end. So talking about how do we actually achieve that? Well, if you start putting sex back into marriage and getting to know each other before sleeping together, like really get to know each other, really understand, is this someone I share values with? Would I want to raise a family with? That would do so much to improve relationships.
But what do you think about no-fault divorce? Would you be open to getting rid of it?
You know what? I'm torn because first of all, I would have to study a lot more what the nuances might be, because I do think we have an epidemic of abuse today. We do have a ton of abuse.
But that's nothing to do with no-fault divorce. If
I
someone's
agree,
abusing their spouse, they can get a divorce.
I agree. It's not caused by no-fault divorce. I agree with that.
No. But abuse is fault, meaning
I understand.
If you abolish no-fault divorce and abuse occurs, you get a divorce.
It's true in theory, right? But in practice, it's very tricky, because in practice, proving abuse when it's he said, she said in a court of law can be very difficult. So I'm not saying we shouldn't get rid of no-fault divorce. I'm very much open to that, because I do think we have a divorce problem and we're just divorcing for stupid reasons. And I think that's bad. I think I want to follow my dreams. We weren't compatible anymore. And then there's these beautiful children who are left in the chaos of that. And then we pretend.
So long as no-fault divorce exists, there's no marriage.
That's kind of how I felt. Mm-hmm. Like I got burned in my 20s.
There's no commitment till death do us part. If at any point you can just sign a paper and it ceases to exist.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that it's way too easy to get in a divorce. I agree with that. So I think there's maybe varying degrees of what you mean by abolishing no-fault divorce, but I agree that it's too easy to divorce and too many people do it too quickly.
Don't get married.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
Well, even more importantly than don't get married if you're just going to quit on the marriage, because I think that's absolutely right. I think we also should be saying, and this is very controversial because this is not the way people think today, don't have sex if you're not married. And people, a lot of people are like, well, I remember telling, I think it was...
I don't think you're going to win that one.
Because people will get married just to have sex. That's not a good thing either.
Well,
that too. I think you're going to find the people are going to bang. You can't stop them.
I mean, people are always going to do a lot of things, right?
Yeah. But I think horny.
But I think it's more, I do think it's possible to have self-control. I think it is. I think it's possible to have a sexual attraction for someone and not hook up with them. 100%.
But that's you, right? Like the reason these things exist is because humans do these things. That's it. If it were as simple to say like people should have self-control, these things wouldn't exist. They'd have self-control, but they don't want to. That's why I brought up the point about liberals ultimately just downloading their brains into computers because they're chasing carnal pleasure. They don't care about anything else. They don't care for the future. They care about short-term gratification. That's it.
I do think you can work on your behavior. So I know a guy as an
but you
example.
need-
they're not going to.
Hold on. I know a
There
guy, for
has to
example.
be
I know a guy.
desire. That's like it's like
Yeah.
so. Like I'm an alcoholic. I don't drink anymore. But like you can't get someone that's doing something, whether it's detrimental to themselves or not. You can't get them to change behavior unless they want to. So like the fundamental thing that you're talking about of we need to get people to change their behavior. I get it, but you're dealing with people that have a totally different philosophical point of view from you, and don't even start with there are people like this is something that I've had to come to terms with in the past 5 or 10 years or so. But there are people out there whose starting principles are so different. They don't even believe that you can engage in a conversation honestly with another person. They believe it's all power games. So the idea that you can get people, hey, you just shouldn't have sex when you're talking to people that are atheists or people that are agnostic and stuff. I don't think that that's an actual.
It's like speaking gibberish.
So-
Yeah, it's starting from a place. It's a non-starter, I guess.
So I talk to a lot of young people, Gen Zers, who feel, and millennials, over the years back when they were younger, but who feel like if they didn't have sex, they were the weirdo. That if they were the virgin, they were the weirdo. It's like the 40-year-old virgin movie, like the weirdo,
Great
right?
movie.
The weirdo. But I think that's the problem, right? So it's one thing where people make their own decisions in
No.
the end, right? We can't control what people do. I agree with you 100%. But I do think we can change the narrative on this
I don't
stuff.
think that it's peer pressure. I think that it comes from inside of people. Like,
Well-
I think the urges that we have, the urge to eat isn't because homie told you that steak's real good over and over and over. It's because you have an urge to eat.
Actually, I did not eat until my friend was like, "Have you tried it?" And I was like, "I'll give it a
But,
shot."
Now I'm addicted.
and that's one of the urges.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But if there's a lot of societal forces, like, we all love ice cream. At least I'm going to guess you all like it. I love
Ice
ice
I haven't
cream
eaten in a
badass.
long
Right.
time.
Okay.
Ice
Well,
cream's
but
badass.
that's it. You haven't eaten in a long time because you have these ideals and this view now that maybe if I eat too much ice cream, it will make me sick, right? And so I think, and what's good for my body, right? What is the right thing to do for my body? So similarly, I would argue we're not talking enough about the harm of sex before outside of marriage. We're just saying, well, everyone's going to do it anyways. Give them a condom and it's great. That's not the right approach. The right approach instead to say we can practice discipline, we can practice self-control. People are happier and they stay together longer when they don't have sex before marriage and don't shack up before marriage. The social data proves that.
But is it
so we should be talking about that.
Could it be
That's
they
something
have
we should talk about.
commercials for medication, and it's this big fat guy, and he eats a big old greasy pepperoni pizza, and then goes, "Oh!" and it's like, "Want to eat the food you love?" And then he pops a pill, and he smiles and eats the pizza again, and I'm like, "Stop! You're kidding."
I agree.
This
Stop.
is America, and we have a cultural sickness. I said earlier, our culture is dead. I agree with you on
Instant gratification and meaninglessness. Not good.
But I do think there's a political conundrum in a group of people desperate to sterilize and remove themselves from the gene pool, who are also eating garbage, celebrating having morbid obesity, and then you have conservatives desperately trying to keep them voting.
Yeah. And so
Like that's never going to resolve itself.
if what I'm saying about, sex and it being designed for within marriage, because sex bonds you dramatically to another person and it can create new life, which are two things for marriage: lifelong love and responsibility, and then children, right? That family project together. And so, yeah, of course, if someone disagrees and is like, I disagree with this girl, I'm not going to do that, they're free to do what they want to do in the end, right? But what I'm trying to say is, why don't we have more conversations about the beauty of what we're aiming for? Like that beautiful image of the couple that's married 50 years and they're holding hands on the park bench, right? And they were their first love, or, they were virgins when they got married and they committed to that. I mean, it takes a commitment.
Culture.
I'm not saying it's easy. Exactly.
But
it's culture.
my question-
And so we can do our part in creating culture and not saying like people are doomed to just hook up and sleep together and be promiscuous. No one's doomed to promiscuity. No one's doomed
What
to
I'm
that.
We got to go to super chats.
What you said that people that don't, and we will go to super chats really fast. That people that don't have sex before marriage tend to be happier and have a longer relationship. But is it possible that happier people don't have sex before marriage?
It's an interesting, meaning they have other values that they are cherishing and learning about each other intellectually, spiritually, etc. Is that kind of what you're saying? I definitely could be.
I think those study measure relative happiness from point A to point B. So that is from the point of marriage 10 years later. How would you rate your happiness here? How would you rate your happiness here? Because happiness is always relative.
We know there's less. We know there's less STIs, unplanned pregnancy, and we know there's less divorce with less sexual partners.
There are one of my favorite studies. They found that a paraplegic 1 year after their accident and a lottery winner 1 year after winning rate the same levels of happiness.
Oh my gosh!
So it's all relative to where you are in life. You know, I've been to some slums in foreign countries. These people are as happy as happy can be with their family. So when you look at that and you look at the data, people who are, they've had no other sexual partners before marriage say, I'm very happy. 10 years later, I'm very happy. People who had multiple partners say, I'm very happy. I'm completely unhappy. We got divorced.
But it's not just feeling whether or reporting happiness. It's also behavior. And it is a fact that people who cohabitate before marriage are more likely to divorce than people who don't.
We're going to go to super chats, but one final thought
people don't
is
know that.
cohabitation is illegal in West Virginia.
Interesting. But most people are told cohabitate is good because it'll help you get to know each other and try it on before you marry to avoid divorce. That's the cultural narrative today, and that's actually not true. It's better to not cohabitate and practice a sexual morality to each other, to really get to know each other on a spiritual and intellectual level, get to understand each other's families, backgrounds, and then, hey, is this a life project partner that I'm going to commit to for life to raise a family with? Yes. Okay, now I'm going to marry and pledge myself to you publicly. Now we'll share each other's bodies.
We're going to go to super chats.
That's a beautiful idea.
So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member by going to timcast.com and clicking join us. And we're going to have a members only show over at timcast.com at about 10 p.m. where you as members can actually call into the show. If you sign up for at least $25 a month, or you've been a member for at least 6 months, you can submit questions and then even call into the show. All right, I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, I think this aliens nonsense is twofold. A, to prevent war with China. Hey, we got a cool space tech. And B, to distract from how horrible the state is. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
A military flex.
All right, what do we got? Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, did you see the viral video of our bestie Turtleman Mitch McConnell glitching out? Him, Biden, Feinstein, Fetterman, and many more. We are a broken nation. Trump needs to be our last 70-plus leader.
Sounds like you were sitting on the show with us tonight.
Well, this was at 8 o'clock.
That's why. Yeah, you were reading our minds, man, before we even got into it.
What is this? Kritik says, Whitmer signed into law to ban conversion therapy today. Would love a discussion on this. Thank you for your work. It's
Which
really
therapy?
It's for LGBTQ youth. It's really weird that a program that you choose to do is banned.
Right.
Like, they're not mercilessly beating children over here.
In the state of California, if you counsel someone with unwanted same-sex attraction and they're a youth and you're counseling them to deal with their unwanted same-sex attraction, you can get in trouble with the law. That's how far gone we are because of the mythology around conversion therapies that are so evil. Yes, have there been some evil conversion therapies? Yes, but most counselors who are, I think, seeing this the correct way understand that same-sex attraction, a lot of it is connected to traumas, issues in your past, how you developed your relationship with your mother, your father, and those things need to be explored, especially when that person is saying, what is this with me? I don't understand the way that I am. And the fact that we don't even have those conversations, we're not even allowed to have those conversations, I think is horrible. It's so, I was just interviewing a woman who was living in a lesbian relationship, I think she was married or she was in a long-term relationship. And she ended up rejecting that because she said, that was what I was told was going to make me happy in the end. But at the end of the day, she said, my identity is in God. You know, she's a Christian, but it also is realizing that I'm not designed to have sex with a woman. That's not my identity. That's not what I'm designed for. So I think we need to hear more of those voices. But again, that's like faux pas today. You're not allowed to talk about that. And I think that's a problem. And it hurts a lot of people.
Vosh 1985 says, Tim, please help. Ohio Dems are trying to get no-limit abortion in the state constitution. August 8th, we are having a special election to change the bar to pass amendments from 51 to 60. Vote yes on issue 1 on the 8th if you're in Ohio. Well, all right.
I mean, there's a lot of ballot initiatives being pushed by the pro-abortion side to permit abortion through all 9 months for any reason. It just happened in California. We passed Proposition 1. Horrible.
In Colorado.
Horrible. So we've got to fight. We've definitely got to fight that.
Oklahoma
Check out
banned
liveaction.org and we'll help equip you for the fight.
Oklahoma banned it and Colorado has it unlimited, which means these two states, which share a border, are going to be a potential hot seat for serious conflict. A woman in Oklahoma will flee to Colorado. The father is going to say, hey, she's fleeing the state to commit a crime. The state's going to have no authority to go to the state. Federal government won't intervene. And I think...
Or will intervene. Who knows? Jeez.
Yeah. Or the guy will get a posse.
Because the federal government... Yeah, exactly. If federal government doesn't intervene in that situation for to stop it or to allow it, someone else is... It's like you can't... Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when we don't protect constitutional rights for all, and just some states are doing it and other states are allowed to encroach on them. I mean, the fact that in California, if you're conceived in California, you could be killed until, weeks before, days before birth. Did you guys hear the story of the surrogate in California?
I don't think so.
Yeah, where the guys wanted the baby terminated, but...
So two men who have no business trying to adopt or create a child, two men got together, they hired a surrogate, they hired an egg donor, they created these babies in vitro through IVF, and then they implanted this little beautiful baby boy in this woman. They, got a surrogate, and she gets cancer. She gets breast cancer. And she is going to need treatment, and the baby is about 24, 25 weeks old, so old enough to survive. You can survive as young as 21 weeks, 6 days, 5 days, I think, is the earliest surviving little boy, little girl. And what do the dads say? The dads, they're not even dads. These men who purchase this life now destroy it. And she said, well, let me give birth to it and let it be adopted. I'll adopt him, this little boy. We don't want our DNA out there, one of the dudes. And so what happened? They delivered this beautiful little boy at 25 weeks old and left him to die, ultimately. And this was all done legally in the state of California, where abortion's legal through all 9 months.
Why did she let it happen?
She shouldn't have. She's responsible too, in my opinion. I think surrogates, I think women who give their bodies, I can see some good intentions in it for some people saying, I'm trying to help this family. I think it is all wrong and should all be stopped. And women shouldn't have any part in selling their wombs. And then you open the door to these horrible human rights abuses, like this little boy that was killed, brought into existence, and then killed.
All right, let's read some more. Robert Romano says they need not be interstellar. They could be nearby. We're not alone. Or is it to convince Russia we have invulnerable alien tech, but it's fake? That's what I'm saying. They could be reptilians, Like the ship could be from the center of the Earth that came out of the hole in the North Pole, especially now that the ice caps are melting, and the lizard people could be coming up.
That's why.
Crashing a ship.
The river of blood in Antarctica.
One of my favorite conspiracy theories is that in the age of dinosaurs, before the meteor struck the Earth and wiped everything out, there was a species of dinosaur that was cave dwelling and, got their resources and food through cave moss or something like that. I don't think any of this made sense, but I was reading this and it's really funny. And it's like they survived the meteor strike and then evolved super intelligence, but live underground. And then I love this too, because they connected it with the Denver airport. And they're like, the Denver airport has like 8 sublevels, which connects to a network of underground cities inhabited by dinosaur people. And I was like, was that a TV show, like Land of the Lost or something, where they go into the Earth and then they're in this alternate reality or something?
Yeah, dude. Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's an old Jules Verne book, which is a great book.
It is a great book.
If you have not read it,
I
read
love
it.
that book.
That's a different story, but yeah.
It is a different story, yeah. I never saw Land of the Lost.
And Denver Airport's a terrible airport.
Yeah, it could be. I was just there. International. I'm sorry.
Sorry to all the Coloradans who love the Denver airport.
It could be within us, without us.
It just takes forever.
Like a vibration in space time that's being hyper concentrated by like spiritual force. That could be what the aliens are.
Ghostgate says aliens are Jesus and the angels. The Antichrist is AI, and they'll be apparent in early 2027. Jesus returns in mid-September. Yom Teruah 2030. If Jesus doesn't return to destroy the AI.
The only way Christ will return is if it returns within you and all of us together at once.
No, but I think Christians believe that he's like actually coming back, right?
Yeah, he is. He is coming back. I think the alien stuff to some degree is a big distraction to the Frankenstein style experiments we're doing on human beings in laboratories, not just in places like China, but in the United States.
They're probably putting them in craft. I mean, who knows if what Bob Lazar saw wasn't a chimera at the time.
All the experimentation we're doing on these little tiny babies we're bringing into existence just to experiment on them and kill them. It is sick, and I think no one's talking about it. There's very few headlines about it, right? It's not making your Twitter feed most of the time, but it is.
Would you endorse going to war with China to stop China from doing experiments like that?
It's an interesting question. I don't think so.
Because China's gonna.
I think that the moral problem of just going to war with the country and all of the evils associated with war, there's a lot of evils happening in a lot of countries, right? But we don't go invade them. And well, some people say we do that to some degree in some countries, right? And there's a lot of debate about that. Is that right that we do that? But I would say generally speaking, we should first fix our own house. And we're doing evil stuff in the United States. It's not just happening in China. Our abortion rate is one of the highest in the world. 2,500 children are killed every day here. We're experimenting on them in our labs. We're creating them like the little boy in California and then killing them at 25 weeks old, born alive, left to die because he wasn't wanted by his dad. The whole thing is sick. So I would say let's address that and then we can worry about China.
Noah Sanders says, Tim, if you have too many chickens, you should hold a livestock auction for your elite members. Get rid of chickens, make some money and content, and have a community building event all in one. That's actually a really good idea.
It's a great episode of Cast.
Exactly. If we can legally do it, we have Ian is basically auctioning off the citizens.
How fast can you talk,
I need
Ian?
a gavel.
No.
Ian loves those
You
things.
just double the speed over and over again.
And a few of the crew will go into Chicken City and negotiate with Roberto Jr. for the sale of his prisoners. And then he, goes and sells them.
Timcast negotiating with terrorists.
Yeah.
Ian's
I only have
You guys
so much
have
gold,
a
Roberto.
boatload of excess eggs upstairs
We
or
have
downstairs, wherever it
I'll
was.
take
200 or
some.
What do you
300.
do with all of those eggs?
Oh, we
I'm
eat 'em
supposed to be
mostly.
eating
You eat
6
all
in
of
the
them.
morning lately with this protein buff, but it's just a lot.
How
of
many
food.
eggs do you eat a day?
I don't eat that many.
Okay.
I
Who
mean,
eats them? Because they were
People are eating them,
there
but
were
we
like
have too
30,
many.
30 cartons of eggs
Yeah.
just sitting there.
Yeah, I think
And they're
there's a
going to
couple
go bad
hundred.
if they don't get eaten.
But they're good for a long time.
They last a long
A couple weeks to a month, maybe
Yeah.
reasonably. But
If you wash them, they go bad faster.
yeah, you don't wash them. But we make stuff. Maybe we'll just have a big frittata thing on Friday or something. I don't know.
That'd be good.
No, we should do it
I
tomorrow
like
because
that
Friday's
you know
sushi
about.
day.
I like that it's a frittata and not an omelet. I like that.
Oh, or we could do like a quiche. Why don't we do like a massive
Delicious, mushrooms in one area of the quiche, green pepper in another area. Then you can have them overlapping,
We can just make egg
concentric
pasta.
circles.
We can on the table.
Tomato.
We just make a big mound of flour, and you make a hole, and we put all the eggs in it, and then we make pasta.
You had me till flour.
That sounds good.
Actually, I do need to eat more flour now, so that could be cool. I don't know if I need it, but it's good carbs.
Yeah, but we got too many eggs. But actually, it would be a good idea because we have too many chickens. We have too many. They make more of themselves.
Listen, what you could do is you could give the eggs away.
We could we could ship the eggs to people who want to incubate them and then have their own Chicken City strain. But we got a bunch of just random backyard chickens and they're all hooking up and mutating and stuff, doing weird chicken things.
Space.
Yeah, our
Don't
frizzle,
donate
our frizzle
an egg
died.
drive. You could donate them. A lot of people
Let's-
would love some farm fresh eggs from
But I think it would be cool if
Tim's
we did an
special
auction.
Chicken City.
We'll go somewhere and we'll just set up a little stage or whatever.
I'm going to
and-
practice the fast talking. Hey, we got a thing. $25.
That would be the best.
Okay, I'll do it.
I would love to hear Ian doing the
chicken auction.
Yeah, I would love it.
We're working on the Cast Brew commercials. I'm really excited for because Roberto Jr. is going to be in it.
Who
We
is
got-
Roberto Jr.?
He's the rooster.
He's the
Oh.
son of the original
Of course,
rooster,
I understand.
Roberto.
Okay.
He's the son of Roberto, obviously.
Right.
So do the hens have names too, or just
Yes.
Roberto? Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah,
Dorothy.
Yeah, well,
was
the
pretty cool.
original ones I know all their names, but then there's a whole bunch more that they all have names. But
Do you remember all of your chickens' names, Tim?
I did not name them.
Oh.
I named the original 7, the original 6 actually. They actually we
do
had
guests get to name a chicken?
no the Chicken City audience named them.
Oh, okay.
So they just culturally decide, and there's a wiki for it. There's a wiki, a Chicken City wiki, where people will talk about the lore of the city and what happened with Roberto. Roberto was sent to the penal colony at Cocktown for sexual assault, I think.
Yeah, he ripped her back up pretty bad, man.
Yeah, he was
That's
going the girls
normal
too
for
hard,
chickens.
and so he got shipped away. And then
he's a
Roberto
brute.
Jr. is super chill. He's very nice.
I like him.
So Roberto was from a farm, and so he doesn't like people. He's okay, but he's kicked me a couple times. And Roberto Jr. was hatched right in front of me and my girlfriend Allison, and so he's super chill and likes people.
He's
And
like-
you can walk up, he'll just look at you, and then he'll go about
He'll
his
be like,
business.
It's awesome.
Yes, it is.
He's right outside my
Let's
window.
read Super
Yes,
Chats.
it is awesome.
my
All right.
my pet chicken when I was a little girl died a very traumatic death, so I have a soft spot for chickens.
I love him.
All right. Legama says aliens are real. Biden's pyramid ship is on the way. When it arrives, he will convene a press conference. His eyes will shine bright and his voice will get demonic. His gibberish will turn out to be Goa'uld. He will shout Bata Kefkara in the camera and launch his death gliders at Mar-a-Lago.
At Mar-a-Lago.
It turns out all the things he was saying were actually secret codes being sent to the alien planet. The aliens are going to land, and he's going to look at them, and they're going to be like, they're going to say, Trinidad Shabbat pressure, Bata Kefkara next null recent. And then we're going to be like, what? And then they're going to explain that
Your true form was showing near the end of your journey.
those are the three phrases that must be uttered to summon the aliens to Earth.
That's funny. So he's cracking. His human visage is cracking, and his alien language is coming out.
Well, no, it's like that's his mission. They're like, you have to say this code word, and then once all three code words are admitted in this order, you're signaling the invasion.
Oh, okay.
He can't just do it all at once because it would be too weird.
Yeah.
If he said Truna Nana Shabbat pressure, Bata Kef Care next and Rescent, people would be like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah, the aliens
like he's speaking
perceive
tongues.
time different.
But he does one mutterance and then another and here and there, and people are just like, silly Joe gibbering again.
They were like, first, plagiarize your official presidential campaign to acknowledge that you are on the mission. So he did that in 1988.
Kurtalinga says, Tim, you kind of dropped the ball by not calling your pumpkin spice brew Hocus Pocus with a ghost kitty on the label. But that's like a Halloween thing, right? So we're doing an espresso roast called Focus with Mr. Bocus. And then Mr. Bocus's pumpkin spice experience was just because it's a funny name. But we're going to have year-round pumpkin spice. I don't know if that ruins it for people.
I like it.
Yeah.
It does make me sad when pumpkin spice leaves the market.
It's only here for like 2 months. Why?
It's a supply and demand thing. They want to make it special, but I would
Not
it
special
would be
anymore. We got it
special
all
all
year
day
round.
long. It would be special all year long to me anyways.
Bad Guacamole says, in my opinion, here's a real-life example of possible Nephilim DNA. Search Ursula and Sabina Eriksson, Madness in the Fast Lane. It's very hard to look at these ladies as human after watching. I don't know about all that. You know, I think I was saying porphyria or whatever. Yeah. It's just like this affliction, and that's where the vampire myth comes from. They saw a guy who was like, bony, and he had like his gums were receding, and they were like, it's a vampire, and it's just like some poor dude who's got a genetic disorder.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep. Bing Bong Hell says, disappointed by Tim's lack knowledge of the history of the U.S. cover-up of UFOs going back to the 70s. Watch The Phenomenon if you want to know more. X Operation Blue Book. Balmstrom Air Force Base. I'm fighting to sneeze here.
Do it.
Will not be done.
People will clip it.
Dude, I don't believe the alien stuff. It's just, you know what happened with Roswell? Something they were working on crashed, and they were like, we can't let them figure out what it is. Just say it's aliens. And then they were like, oh no, now they think there's aliens. Say it's not aliens. What are you doing? And something like that.
That sounds reasonable to me. I think that I do think that it is possible to have there to be aliens, and I don't think that contradicts in any way being Catholic or being Christian. But
Demons.
Yeah, well, even if there
demons.
are actual, like, another life form, another creature that was created on another planet, and it's not included in the Genesis story, I think that doesn't mean the Genesis story isn't true, and that everything we believe to do isn't true.
Yeah, God's got side projects.
What I'm saying is, you can be a Christian and believe in aliens. That's what I'm saying. I believe that it's possible that they exist, but I agree with you. I don't really buy it. I think there's plenty of stuff to worry about already here.
I like that in American Dad. They did an episode where people are being raptured or whatever, and the alien. What Roger, he's like, I want to go, and then Jesus is like one of my dad's side projects, but it's like the aliens aren't welcome in God's kingdom because they're just like not part of it.
Does it say God created man in His image? That's
in
like
our
image, dogs.
yes.
Welcome.
So like bipedal, symmetrical kind of thing. Like two of you ever. So maybe there are other creatures on Earth.
But
It's
dogs
talking
go to
about
heaven?
the body matters a lot, but it's the soul too. So our ability to love, our ability to reason, our mind, our soul is what is godlike about us.
Do dogs go to heaven?
They could. I have no problem with the dog going to heaven.
'Cause
I'm not like
Seamus
a huge
says they
dog
don't.
person, but Seamus says they don't. I mean, I think there could be dogs in heaven.
No, Seamus said they all go to hell, and they. I'm kidding. I'm saying that.
Seamus, how could you?
They'll burn.
Why is Seamus a cat person or something?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay, he's just being
No,
cruel.
he says that.
Seamus is a spoon person.
Yeah,
He's a thief.
but he said.
Listen,
I don't
I
want to
think-
speak on behalf of him, but I'm pretty sure he says animals don't go to heaven.
It's interesting. I think that heaven is, you're the beatific vision. So you're in this perfect communion with God who loves you and you love God and you're just glorifying Him in this perfection for eternity. I also think that God knows how to make good things for humans. We're still human in heaven, right? It's not like we change our nature. We're still human. And so I would argue that it is possible that everything we enjoy on earth, like food or our loving relationship with our cat or dog, we're going to have perfection in heaven. So will there be some experience of that in heaven? Maybe. I mean, we have the ultimate, which is God, and we're totally satisfied with God. But is an aspect of that what we enjoy in animals and in food and all these other things? I'm just saying it's going to be perfect in heaven and amazing and blow your mind. So in one sense, it doesn't matter, right? But if it makes you feel better, I would say, yeah, I think whatever that joy you're experiencing on earth, you're going to experience it like 10x, 1,000, and beyond even what you can imagine X in heaven.
What if when you die, like all of a sudden it's just like pitch black, and then like a thing appears in front of you and it says like, congratulations on completing life. Would you like to end game or new game plus? And then when you select new game plus, you're born again, but you remember everything and you have all of your knowledge, but you're like a newborn baby.
Dang, that'd be awesome.
New game plus.
I got a feeling that your electromagnetic field, your human dynamo, is where your spirit is stored. And when you die, it goes out into the atmosphere. That's kind of like purgatory. And if you're just obsessed with Earth and you can't let go, you stay and you become a demon and you're in hell. But if you let yourself go, you go into the sun and become one with it. And that's where heaven exists, at least locally. Then maybe the galactic core, you can at some point go
there was
to a
like a
greater
book
heaven.
about that, where it was like there are gods and our God is within the sun and heaven was within the sun, but that also means that every other star was a different kind of deity or power.
What's always comforted me about heaven is, in my faith, is that everything, because there's sometimes I think, and there's a kind of a cultural imagination about heaven that is boring, like the angel with the harp or something. I don't know if you guys have ever run into that, or it's like weird or something. But like the God who created all the good things of earth created the perfection of heaven and himself, who, God didn't create himself. He is, forever, always has been, but God is perfect and communion with God will be just mind-blowingly, amazingly amazing. And so you kind of don't have to worry about it, right? Because it's going to be amazing. But I think sometimes we doubt that because we can't imagine how amazing it's going to be, but we just have to trust.
And life can be so good sometimes. I understand why people don't want to let go.
Let's read some more. We got Acadia says, Louisiana made a new law called covenant marriage. It's only between a man and a woman. There are extra steps, but it's what marriage is supposed to be, only dissolved under certain circumstances. Super marriage. I called for super marriage.
Yep.
On this show, I said, you guys can keep your no-fault divorce, but we'll just create something called super marriage, which is effectively marriage without no-fault divorce.
You can get married in the Catholic Church. That's super marriage.
You can always choose or not.
No divorce
choose
for that.
Not to.
So
no one forced you to get married.
If you get married in the Catholic Church, it is what they're describing as super marriage, because no, you're not allowed to ever divorce. You can get a legal divorce for separation if there's like abuse or something, but if it was an actual marriage, if there's no annulment, meaning annulment is when it wasn't a marriage and you thought it was, but the person was lying to you or there's some other extreme circumstance. But once married, always married.
All right. Triton54 says the Hunter court drama is much more nefarious. Hunter's attorney, Jessica Bengals, Hunter's attorney contacted the court pretending to represent the House Ways and Means Committee in order to get motions removed from the docket. I heard that. Isn't that crazy?
Damn.
Yeah, that's some dark stuff.
How did that?
Jacob says, I don't know if Hunter is the diversion for the aliens or vice versa, but we are definitely part of a psyop one way or the other.
Aliens a diversion for Hunter.
It's all a diversion for the biggest issues of the day, which are not that. I would
like
say.
regrowing the coral reefs. Yeah, dude.
You hear that the water in Florida was over 100 degrees?
Yeah, 101.
It's like a hot tub just on the beach. Dang. John Bartholomew says, Tim, my firstborn son is 5 days old and is enjoying his first Timcast IRL tonight. Gotta get him young. Gotta hook him young. Thank you for all you do to shift the culture of our country in a direction that gives me hope for my son. Thank you very much.
Good job being born, man. Nice work, dude.
Yeah. That's a hard job. It's tough.
Gravity's annoying at
Small
first,
hole.
Guys.
you're going to learn to walk. It'll be awesome.
Jedi Mind Trick says, Ian, I've heard you many times say, I'm not sure if it's a human in regard to abortion. My question would be, what other species than a human have women ever give birth to? Using deductive logic, what the WTF else could it be?
Well, that's the chimera we talked about. Maybe the chat came in early.
A human
But
Z.
no woman has ever given birth to a chimera. So
That's arguably not true. The potential.
Well, what are you defining that to be actually? Because
So the legend goes that the Soviets.
Oh, the legend. Okay.
So, and there's reason to believe it may be true. The Soviets were conducting experiments where they were trying to create human-chimp hybrids. The issue is that you can't take male sperm and put it into a female chimp because a female chimp is too small. It would have to be chimp sperm in a female human who's larger and can actually birth the baby. And many people call it a conspiracy theory, whatever you want. I would lean towards these countries are running black operations, genetic experiments on humans. The Nazis were doing crazy stuff. The Japanese were doing crazy stuff. They would take a person, put their arm into freezing, into like a freezing sub-zero temperatures, and then once it froze, shatter it to see what would happen. So they're doing stuff like that we know about. Why would they not try and create so the thing about a human chimp hybrid is that humans and chimps share almost all of their DNA, like a ridiculous, like 99.4 or something. So when we hybridize, say like a horse and a donkey, is that what it is? A horse and donkey makes a mule or whatever?
Yes.
We can make hybrids between like ligers and tyons. So humans and chimps theoretically have enough DNA where it's not the most advanced genetic engineering to try and create this. It's just got to be a human woman carrying it. So
there's no
think it happened.
There's no evidence that it's been successfully done. But if it were successfully done, to your point, Tim, it would be wrong and it should be illegal to kill or harm in any way that chimera.
It's a hypothetical hybrid of chimps and humans. They say serious attempts to create a hybrid were made by the Soviet biologist Ilya Ivanovich Ivanov in the 1920s and possibly by researchers in China in the 1960s, though neither succeeded. I kind of feel like there's no reason for them not to have continued.
Oh, right? It says they share 95% of the DNA sequence and 99% of coding DNA sequences.
There you go. There it is. Hybridization between chimps and bonobos has already been documented.
But here's the thing. We should not be permitting experimentation on new human embryos or creating new human embryos in IVF petri dishes and to then edit or do whatever to.
Those things
rabbits
happen
and hares
in China and in the Soviet Union. So again,
rabbits
I know
and
it happens in other countries. I'm talking about our country because for
no.
all the experimentation you're talking about, Tim, like we're doing experimentation here and it's funded by the NIH.
What do you think about like CRISPR? I don't know how much time. We don't have much time to get into it. Maybe we talk about it on the after show, like the idea of genetic editing to give people better eyesight or something.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
talk about
it's very ethically fraught.
We got to go to the members only. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it there. We're going to go late, so sorry. But if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. The members only show is coming up in a few minutes. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Lila, do you want to shout anything out?
Thanks. Check out liveaction.org, and I've got a podcast, Lila Rose Podcast, on YouTube.
Right on.
I am Phil That Remains Official on Twitter. The band is All That Remains. On Spotify, on YouTube, Pandora, Apple Music, the whole, all the places. So
I'm Ian Crossland. You guys, thank you for coming. Have a great night. Lila, thanks for coming.
Thanks for
Your
having me.
tone helped a lot. I think what you were saying earlier, Phil, you can't tell someone don't have sex, but sometimes just hearing the tone of people can change you when you're young. So thank you. Roseanne changed me when I was young, for instance, with her awesome show. So thanks for coming on and talking about it, man. We need more conversations like this.
Thanks for having me.
What's happening, Serge?
Not much. What an interesting chat. I'm Serge.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm all over the place. Follow me there. Let's fight and argue on the internet. It's great.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out.